question was asked if the gunman left anything behind, and the police chief said no, but they are going to be searching his vehicle. The gunman left anything behind, and the police chief said no, but they are going to be searching his vehicle, looking for clues to piece this together.
Because we had heard reports of explosives early on.
Smoke bomb-like device.
Because we had heard reports of explosives early on.
No apparent squad coming in and wondering, but you talked about the door being barricaded, and the police chief did say you talked about the shooter approached just one side of the church, and the police chief did say that door was barricaded by just one side of the church. That side, that door was barricaded by a 2x4
getting outside of the church. We want to go now to our Derek James. He has more information just about Annunciation Catholic School, Annunciation Church. Derek, what can you tell us?
Well, some of these are some items you've mentioned earlier, but first let's start with the size of the school. There are about 430 students, pre-K through 8th grade, and U.S. News & World reports that based on class size, there's anywhere from 20 to 40 kids per grade. So there's a basically 1 to 12 ratio of teacher to student at this school. About 24 teachers and staff at Annunciation. A post that came out yesterday on the school's Facebook page for the first week of school showed about 20 kids in the 3rd grade, all smiling in their uniforms in a picture. And the school uses a motto, a future filled with hope. You see that in all of their social media. It's a hashtag that they use throughout. Also noticed in looking at some of the photos, a number of the kids that attend this school are bike riders. There were some pictures shared online of the kids locking up their bikes for this first week of school as they went back to class Monday morning at 8 a.m. The school was established in 1923. It has an IB program, the International Baccalaureate program. That's, of course, high academic standards. It's really college preparatory. They really look to prepare those young people not only for college, but then just also to be good human beings. I can tell you that the pastor at Annunciation is Father Dennis Zarin. He was newly installed just in the month of July, and I know that because we said goodbye to him at the church that my family currently attends, which is St. Vincent de Paul in Brooklyn Park, and he is obviously very missed there. We did see about 20 or 30 minutes ago, St. Vincent de Paul did share a message saying that they're grateful to share that Father Zarin, known to many there as Father Z, was not injured, and just asking everyone in the community to prayer. And I have to tell you, when you sit and you listen to sermons every week, I can now very, easily remember Father Zarin talking about how as Catholics, we should not fear death, and that we should be called to hope, knowing that through faith and good works,
all right,
that can bring comfort and peace.
I'm sorry, Derek, we do need to interrupt you here. We are getting a briefing now from HCMC.
That was delivered here at Hennepin Healthcare related to this tragic event that occurred this morning. We first received a page that we were going to have a mass casualty incident at 8:46 a.m. this morning. That gave us time to mobilize all our resources and prepare our teams. We are a level 1 trauma center, and we prepare and we train for this. Having said that these incidents are never easy. We've had 2 in the last 24 hours that have occurred, these mass casualty incidents. The one today, we received a total of 11 patients from this incident. 2 of them were adult patients, 9 pediatric patients. 4 of them required the operating room. And up to this point in time, there have been no fatalities related to any of those patients that were brought to our organization. I want to take a moment to tell you how proud I am to work for this organization and the teams that were involved, the resources, again, that were mobilized, our surgical colleagues, our medical medicine colleagues, our amazing nursing staff, our psychologists that help process these events for us, environmental services, all those involved. Hennepin EMS brought in all the critical patients seen to our organization, and we're very lucky to have 2 emergency medicine, emergency medical services directors that were on scene and able to provide us with really important information that, again, helped us to prepare for this event. So I don't have any individual or specific information about the patients at this time for you, so that's all I can share. Thank you for being here. Any questions?
You said they were in critical condition?
7 were brought in as critical patients, and at this time, I don't know the updates on what the conditions are of many of them. 4 of them required the operating room, as I said. There were, again, 9 of the 11 patients were pediatric ages. I can't remember the exact ages. I believe it's 6 all the way up to 14. That's the range.
Can you tell us a little bit about what types of teams you had working this morning? How many people it takes to treat a son like that?
Yeah, you know, whenever that type of a page goes out, again, it really puts into motion a lot of a big response from all of the teams. And so we are, because we're a level 1 trauma center, we have to, mobilize certain types of resources like, operating rooms and the surgical services. We have to have emergency providers and nurses. We have to, mobilize things like the laboratory and the blood bank. So there's a lot of planning, and again, a lot of exercises we do throughout the year to prepare for these events. And unfortunately, we respond to many of them throughout the year.
Can you talk about the injuries at all, or any type of what you're seeing here with some of these patients?
I can't get into specifics, but we are dealing with gunshot wound injuries from apparently a high-velocity weapon. And, gunshot wounds can be very problematic because they can involve multiple body systems. And again, they require a lot of resources to manage. But again, we see a lot of gunshot wounds here at Hennepin Healthcare, and we're among the best in the nation every year at managing penetrating trauma. So we are used to seeing them.
Can you tell us where the status of the 11? Are any of them still in surgery?
I don't know the status of that. I can't share that with you at this time.
Was anyone shot more than once?
I can't share that information with you at this time.
Can you confirm the families of some of the victims that made their way here?
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of effort to stand up a reunification center across the street here at our clinical specialty care building. And so to my knowledge, I believe all or almost all of the families and loved ones have been reunited with patients and know their status.
Do you know if anyone is being treated at any other locations?
My understanding was we had a lot of the non-critical patients that went to Children's Hospital, and I believe one went to Masonic Children's Hospital as well. I don't know the status of any of those patients.
Can you speak to the toll it takes on physicians here who have to handle these types of cases and mass casualty cases within hours?
Yeah, it does take a toll. Thank you for asking that. Asking that question. I think. Again, we have psychologists that we have dedicated to our emergency department to help with our providers and our nurses and other workers that manage these types of events. Again, we've had 2 mass casualty events happen in the last 24 hours. I mean, that does take a toll. But we also have to recognize that we are here as a critical resource for our community, and we have to take time to process, the care that we deliver in these situations, and we have to be able to move forward because we are obviously needed.
And none of those patients have been discharged?
Not to my knowledge.
You said there were 11 total, and 9 of them were pediatrics ages 6 to 14, but 7 were in critical condition. Are all of those that are pediatric, those 6 to 14, are all of those in critical condition, or are the ones that are older also in critical condition?
I don't want to misspeak here. I believe that all of the pediatric patients were the ones that were in a critical condition. Yes.
Did I get my numbers right in saying that?
You did.
Can you give us your specific title one more time, doctor?
It's Thomas Wyatt, Chair of Emergency Medicine at Hennepin Healthcare.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing from the Chair of Emergency Medicine over at Hennepin Healthcare. So there with HCMC, they took in 11 patients, 9 of them were children. 4 of them required surgery. Their ages between 6 and 14 years old.
The good thing he said is there are no fatalities. No one no one has died there at HCMC. Thank you for clarifying that. The one thing that the doctor said too is he said this takes a toll. We talked about before as far as how this impacts you even if you don't necessarily live in South Minneapolis. Well, it impacts them because they have to operate on these patients. And he said this is 2 cases in the last 24 hours where we've had these mass shooting events that have happened. We had shootings overnight last night in Minneapolis, and now this today at Annunciation School. So talking about the toll that it takes, but their hands are certainly full over at HCMC right now.
He did say that gunshot wounds, they are
they require extra resources.
You know, they're common, but they do require extra resources.
And that's some of what we were talking about, that preparation, and they have that plan in place of how do we get enough staff here quickly to be able to respond to something like this. They prepare for this and have plans in place with like a mass message that goes out to get everyone in, and then once they do that, then they scale back. But they scale up until they know what they're working with and then scale back. And as of right now, they have a number of patients who came in there and a few of them requiring surgery.
Now, this hospital, HCMC, this is what they are trained to do. They are a trauma hospital, so they are among the best in the country at handling trauma. So we know that more of the critical cases ended up going to HCMC. The doctor also confirming for us that the 5 children sent to Children's Hospital were more of the non-critical cases there. But again, 9 pediatric patients there, 4 of them requiring surgery. None of them have been discharged as of yet right now.
He also said, and this was really important, he said, we got the page at 8:46. And Jen, to your point, he said, that gave us time to prepare. That gave us time to make the preparations. That way we knew what we could assess when those kids came into the ER. We knew we would have a handle on the situation.
Yeah, I've been in that room. They've shown it to us, to our cameras, to show what that looks like in these bays where everyone is working. And, you know, to me, it looks like a big room with a lot of machines. But what I know is that those are all working and tools that they use to save lives. Yeah. And they start in that first emergency room before moving them somewhere else to another floor, potentially for surgery. Right. But you need to stabilize that patient first at Hennepin Healthcare in that ER room, and then move on from there. They've taken us through this to show like what they do in a situation like this, and certainly they needed to use that yesterday and again today.
Once again, to update everyone here, there was a mass shooting this morning at Annunciation Catholic Church in South Minneapolis. That is connected to the Annunciation School there. It's a K-8 school, has about 400 students there. And from what police tell us this morning, just before 8:30, a gunman came into the parking lot there, parked his car there, and then began shooting through the windows at the mass that began there, the welcoming mass on this very first week of school for those students, shooting into the windows.
When those kids came into the ER, we knew we would have a handle on the situation.
Yeah, I've been in that room. They've shown it to us, to our cameras, and from there, they've taken us through this to show like what they do in a situation like this, and certainly they needed to use that yesterday and again today.
Catholic school, 4 of them required surgery in that spot. We know 5 children were sent over to Children's Hospital. So it's horrifying. Truly.
One person we heard from as well is the mayor. We heard from the mayor. He was the first person we heard from, and you could hear the emotion in his voice. Take a listen.
Into the parking lot there, parked his car there.
There are no words that can capture the horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead. There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance.
And again, that's Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. And as he said, these kids were in church. They were praying. This was the opening mass for Annunciation Catholic School. They started school there on Monday, and so every Wednesday morning, the whole school comes together. They do a mass. This was their first one of the year, and someone came into there and shot through the windows, killing 2 of the students, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old at this school here. And it's just hard to fathom. I think what the police chief said, he just said, again, an unthinkable tragedy here.
Yeah. And every time someone on this says these kids that were not only shot, but 2 that were killed, I still have to think, is that real? Yeah. Because you just don't want to believe that this is what unfolded this morning.
It's unthinkable.
Right. It is.
It's unfathomable that this happened again.
It really doesn't make any sense, and we still have so many questions about who this shooter was, because we know the shooter took his own life in the parking lot of the church and the school after committing these horrible acts, allegedly.
I guess the good news out of all of this is there is no longer a threat. The threat is over. That's the good news in this situation. And now it turns to survival and making sure that the people who are injured, they hopefully can make it out alive in this situation. We know those doctors and nurses, they are doing yeoman's work to make sure that people are safe in just an unthinkable situation right now.
Absolutely, and those first responders who went into that church this morning at 8:30 and what they saw in there, because the shooter there had a rifle, had a shotgun,
and a pistol
there, but you know, when you shoot with that kind of weapon, it's just devastating. The doctor had mentioned it there as well. The kinds of wounds that you see from that, and then to walk into a church and see children there, this also has to have an impact on those first responders. But as Jen mentioned, they go through this training, and I have to think, you know, if that was me, I would just crumple on sight. But they are well trained, so they're able to get there and really just change and help as many people as possible as quickly as they can.
Let's check in with our Caroline Cummings, who's live outside of Annunciation Church. Caroline, I understand you got some new information?
Well, hi there, AJ. So we were just told about 15-20 minutes ago, as you saw all morning, we were down at the corner of Garfield and West 54th Street, right outside that school. Law enforcement moved us. Now we're on Garfield, right behind that Kowalski's. But I just tried to get over to the other street that's parallel to the one I am right now, and that's Harriet Avenue. It goes right up to that church. They've blocked that off. So we're looking at a perimeter where, you know, multiple streets off of Lyndale surrounding this school and church are blocked off, and we were here as, you know, the mayor and the police chief, who of course we heard from, were briefing the press, and I'm sure you guys heard it, but that moment where the church bells rang out as they were speaking was a really solemn moment that took a lot of people over here. It just really struck a chord and was so emotional. Me and Barrett hugged each other in that moment because, you know, we're journalists who have to do this for our job, but we're also humans who live in the Twin Cities and are feeling deeply for everybody who's here. And that's really the sentiment from anybody we've spoken with, whether their child attended here or not. If they lived down the block, lived around town, live in this state, they are deeply mourning the loss of those 2 young children, and certainly feeling deeply what these families and this parish and this Catholic school, this broader Minneapolis community are feeling right now. It was a really powerful moment to hear that as they talked.
We made note of that too, Caroline. I turned to Heather, like the church bells ringing, it definitely struck a tone, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Another reminder that these kids were just in their church praying and were shot from the windows outside there. I want to go back to something that Derek James said as he was giving us some information on this school and on this church, and he talked about Father Zaran, who is the priest over there at the school. I just actually come from Derek's church up in Brooklyn Park, but he will be needed now more than ever as this community, as all of our communities move forward with lives that are now forever changed.
Let's listen again to Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara as he walks us through everything, or at least part of the things that unfolded.
This worship service was marking the first week of school for children that are attending the Annunciation Catholic School. During the Mass, a gunman approached on the outside on the side of the building and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the Mass. Shooting through the windows, he struck children and worshipers that were inside the building. The shooter was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children and other people worshiping. The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible.
Absolutely.
That was the moment that really just, you know, and then his next words were, an 8- and 10-year-old were killed where they sat in their pews.
Right, from someone who had shot through the windows of the church outside there. We understand that 11 people went to HCMC, 5 people, and these were more of the non-critical cases, ended up going to Children's Hospital. That's where our Susan Elizabeth Littlefield is. And Susan Elizabeth, we understand you talked with a family member there?
I did, Heather. Actually, an updated number for you. There are 6 patients that have been admitted here at Children's. And to be clear, it is a level 1 trauma center. So much like HCMC, this is something they train for. I actually talked to the staff this morning. They said, yes, we do these mass casualty situation drills, and today is something they never wanted to put into practice. You can see over my shoulder right there, the emergency room. This is where they were taken this morning, a little bit earlier. Family and friends surrounding those patients right now. In fact, we were outside when we saw one of the grandfathers of one of the patients come up. He has an 8-year-old daughter who is in the hospital. He told us that he got word about this morning. The important piece of information here is that she is okay. I want to let you hear a little bit of what he had to say.
It's very sad. It should not be this way. People should not have guns. That's the way I look at it.
What are you going to say to her when you see her?
I'll give her a hug, that's all.
Now, Children's Minnesota is actually asking people to try and avoid the emergency room. Of course, an emergency is an emergency. So if you or someone you know has to come in today, they understand. But they are incredibly busy right now, and they're asking that if possible, people go to the St. Paul campus today. It's all hands on deck here. And again, we know there are 6 patients here. I did talk to the staff. I talked to him about 3 times this morning, checking in. I could not get a status on their condition. Now, we do know that that man we talked with, his 8-year-old daughter, who was there at the time, is safe. He told me a little bit more of context, too. He said he got the call this morning, and of course, he said the first thing, is she okay? And in his case, she is okay, but he aches over the fact that knowing not everyone got that confirmation on this day.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's the toughest part of it all.
That's the hard thing. His 8-year-old granddaughter is okay, but we know there is an 8-year-old child out there that is not.
And okay is such a relative term on a day like today.
Absolutely.
Because physically okay is something different than
They'll never be
emotionally,
okay.
mentally okay, and having witnessed and gone through what all of those kids and adults there went through this morning.
Because as you alluded to, and as we said before, this is a school that it goes from kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade.
Right, and the doctor at HCMC said they had patients come in between the ages of 6 and 14 years old, 6-year-olds coming in there.
And you're talking about a trauma 1 hospital. And when you're talking about gunshot injuries and what that can do, unfortunately, I think we all have covered these enough where we know that. But we're talking about some of the worst situations that these doctors have to come in and try to remedy a situation. So it's the worst of the worst we're talking here now.
These are the people that you want working on you if you have an injury like this. They are highly trained. They also, you know, in talking with them in the past, they take the emotion out of it. This is why they do what they do. I could not do that. I'm not the type of person that could, but they are. And they are the people that you want treating your loved one in a situation like this. They go in and they said everything that they do is to save a life. That is the goal of every single step that they take from the moment they get the patient. But it starts with those emergency responders with the ambulance, because that part is so critical. And today we learned it started with police officers who responded to that scene. They started caring for those patients. It goes then to the next step of these emergency responders, then to the hospital. And each step is so critical in keeping someone alive.
So there are a couple different scenes going on here. We were at HCMC before. We had a press conference there. We were just at Children's. This is a look at the active crime scene just outside of the church here. It's still a very, very active investigation that continues, Heather.
Absolutely, and you can see this is over at the school all morning long. Families have been reunified there. We've seen so many families come out of the school just clutching their children. If you've seen the families, and we assume that these are the moms and the dads there, but just holding tight, both parents holding those children as they come out. Look at that. I mean, just hold, you can see that is the green uniform. That green polo shirt of that little one right there, that is the Annunciation Catholic School uniform. You see that parent holding, you see one behind holding them there. What I thought was interesting is that there are some parents that say, no, look, we just need to hold hands. We need to get out of here. We need to get home. And then you had other parents who were continuing to gather there, felt that they needed more of that community there, that they needed to talk with each other, that they needed to lean on one another in that spot. So you could see, I mean, she is just holding those kids so tightly there. This is much earlier this morning. I would say this video came in probably about an hour and a half ago. As you see, these children are being reunited with their families. You remember this happened just before 8:30 this morning. Many of these kids have been dropped off at 8 o'clock there. That's when the mass started, the welcoming mass to their school there in that spot. So this is when parents were already on their way to work, perhaps on their way to back home. The school bus had just gotten there, and they get the call that there's been a shooting at your school, so they're all rushing in that spot. Again, police are asking you, please stay clear of that area over there at 54th and Lyndale Avenue South over in South Minneapolis. We know it is a busy area, but there's still a lot of activity happening in that spot. Yeah, there's a huge investigation that still has to get underway right now. Very active crime scene. You got to think inside the church, outside the church where the suspected shooter was shooting. Again, outside the church and firing inside and going through the church windows. So you think about it, if you are inside that church and you are sitting inside, you have no idea where this gunfire is coming from. So of course you're going to shelter in place, and you shelter in place until you feel it is safe. And Jen, as you alluded to, you're waiting for, this is the police, it is safe for you to come out. Think about how long it took, even if it's just a couple of minutes, how long that must have felt like for students and staff who are in that church. It must have felt like an eternity, waiting to know it is safe for them to actually come out of the building. You want to hear that word, I'm here to help you. Yes. That message, and getting those kids out and to safety. But so many we know now were impacted by the gunfire that was shot through the window inside the church, and many didn't have the chance to run and hide. No, and you can only imagine, you're in that church there, you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and you hear what probably sounds like firecrackers. You have no idea what is going on. Perhaps a teacher is telling you to get down, get down. What the police chief said is the officers, once they went in there and really tried to help any people and any victims in there that they could, the officers then had to fan out through the school because children had ran out trying to find places to hide. You can only imagine that some may have been hiding in the bathroom or hiding in closets. That takes time to go then find these children, make sure that they understand that they are now safe, but scared to death. And that's a process. That's a process to go from room to room to make sure every room is clear, and then you go to the next room and do the same thing over and over. So that's a process that takes time. It's a process that takes a long time, sure. And we don't know how many people were in the mass. In the mass, right? Exactly. But we do know there are about 375 students in this school, all ages, grades ranging from K through 8. Right. This is a weekly mass, so each the students go to the Mass every Wednesday morning. These students here at Annunciation had just started on Monday. So this was their welcome back Mass to the school. Remember, these are students that are new to the school. They may not know their teacher very well. They may, some of these are kindergartners. They're starting school perhaps for the first time there. And so it should never happen at any time, in any school, in anywhere. But this is a case where it happens at the beginning of school to very young children who probably had no idea what was going on.
No, so many of them probably until it was too late, because you hear something like that, you don't realize or would ever think that you're going to hear a sound like that.
No.
And for some, it was probably too late to run and hide.
One of the things we know is that firsthand accounts help to tell the story as far as what unfolded. And we're starting to get more of those accounts that are starting to come into our newsroom right now. Let's listen to one person who describes what unfolded.
All I can say is I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we have to live in this type of world. I don't understand. And no one should be fearful of sending their child to school.
So that's a neighbor who is reacting, and you can understand, at a loss for words, just trying to make sense of what unfolded in a neighborhood.
Make sense of someone going to a school and shooting children.
It just, I'm angry. You know, this makes me so. I'm shaken up. I'm unsettled, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, because this happens too many times for anyone to make sense of why.
I don't think you ever can make sense of something like this. There is nothing that can, and even just seeing the video that we're looking at. So many first responders, so many police cars from different agencies, ambulances right there. I mean, that's something most people, when they hear an ambulance go by, they go, gosh, I hope someone's okay. It's going by my place. And to see all of that huge concentration in that neighborhood, even that is triggering for so many people. And then you learn the details of what happened. And there's so many layers to this.
Think about the first responders who heard those shots and then went into the church to look for those children.
Right.
To look, to be the helpers, to go in there, not knowing if they could take fire themselves, but then went in there to find those children.
In a matter of minutes after shots were fired.
I mean, those are heroes.
That's what
walking
heroes.
in there who are going in to help kids and to help whoever else is in there.
That's what it is,
and we know that police officers are trained to administer some first aid until other first responders can arrive. And the chief said that is what happened today.
Right, and they have some level of training to be able to do that, but those two are also humans there. These are police officers that walked into something no one should ever have to see there. We know 2 children were killed this morning, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. Several other children are in critical condition throughout hospitals here in the Twin Cities. We did hear from HCMC. They tell us they have 9 kids there, 2 adults. 4 of the people that came there to HCMC did need surgery at that spot, at that point. Right now, police presence expected to be significant over there at the church and at the school. From what we understand, the shooter parked in the school or the church parking lot there, so they are doing searches of what was found in that car. And I'm sure at this point, Jen, the next steps and what happens in this kind of investigation, looking into where is this person from?
Yeah, this is twofold, right? We're focused on the victims, getting them the help that they need and the care that they need, and then there's this whole other side, and this is the law enforcement side, right? They are investigating who this shooter was, where their weapons came from, making sure, double checking that they acted alone. Just because this person was alone today, making sure that they acted alone, that they didn't have any help, or if they did have any help. So right now, that is what is going on behind the scenes while we talk about these victims and this terrible tragedy, as law enforcement is trying to piece together how, why this happened and who is responsible. Learn more about this person. Were there warning signs? What did we know about them? How did they have access to guns?
Sure.
And I am hearing from people who are on that side of the investigation right now, and it is very active, I can tell you at this point, of determining more about the person who did this.
And by the way, just to reiterate the weapons that were in question here, we're talking about, this is confirmed from the Minneapolis Police Chief, Brian O'Hara. The shooter had a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol.
Right.
So 3 different weapons there.
And Jen, as I hear you talking, I think, well, this is of little solace at all, this investigation into why, to the people in this school, to any of the victims, of any of the families. But these investigations are important.
Right.
This is information that we can learn to hopefully, maybe just even one, but prevent these tragedies from continuing to happen.
You know, we talk about what are the warning signs, and the people in schools are trained to learn, but sometimes it's not a student. Sometimes it's someone who's older, like this person we know is in their 20s. And people don't want to be hearing about the person responsible right now. We want the focus to be on these victims, on these families. I mean, this is only a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
And law enforcement does their job at the same time. They have different roles in something like this, and it is to learn more about this. And as you mentioned, we have databases learning about school shootings and to try to prevent other school shootings. I hate to even say that this will be added to that we have one now that will be added to that to learn more information.
And even over at Hamline University, I know they have this mass database of mass shootings there. And when you talk to the people that are compiling this data, it's hard data to compile there. Once again, this is video from earlier today as those families were being reunited there. But it's important information for people to have, to be able to try and spot these things before they ever happen.
Yep, and we've talked with them for our stories about how important that information is. And today, again, we will learn, you know, more about who this person was. And we don't want to focus too much on that while we are in the midst of grief, and this community is in the midst of grieving. And we know an investigation like this must take place, and that there are people on the law enforcement side, from the FBI to the BCA to police to the ATF, all working to learn more and to bring us that information.
Well, we know a lot of the focus is also on the victims, and hopefully they will continue to recover. We want to check in now with our John Lauritsen. He joins us live from outside HCMC with the very latest. John?
Hey guys, we just got an update here just after 11 o'clock from Dr. Thomas Wyatt. He is the chair of emergency medicine here at Hennepin Healthcare behind me. He said they actually had 11 patients brought in this morning, a mass shooting, mass casualty event. Obviously, some good news here, though. Of the 11 patients, all have made it through operations. They have all survived at this point. So we have 9 children and 2 adults that were taken here, and no casualties, no fatalities to report here at Hennepin Healthcare at this time. Just to kind of give you a rough estimate of the ages that were brought in, we're hearing from Dr. Wyatt that they were anywhere from about 6 to 14 years old. 7 of them were brought in critical condition. Of course, this was all hands on deck for Hennepin Healthcare. They train for these kind of things. He talked a lot about that, about going through drills and things of that nature, just sadly preparing for situations like this, hoping they don't occur, but obviously this morning one unfortunately did. So he talked a lot about, too, the psychology of this. A lot of these nurses and doctors that work with these kids and try and help them also need to talk to somebody when all of this is over, a therapist, a psychologist. So it's a very tense process, obviously. Again, 9 children were taken here this morning, 2 adults. But no fatalities at this point. There's also right to my left here a unification center, they're calling it, where you have family members of those shot that were going through surgery this morning. Those are family members that are able to go across the street. They've given all those families updates at this point too, letting them know how their loved ones are doing after surgery. So again, guys, that's the latest update right now. 11 of the people shot taken here behind me to Hennepin Healthcare, 9 children, 2 adults, and no fatalities at this point here at Hennepin Healthcare.
John Lauritsen updating us from HCMC. We appreciate that update, John. And you know, the one thing that John said, and we've talked about this before, is that the crews at the hospital were ready. And they were ready because they were alerted ahead of time, one, but they go through drills. Unfortunately, they go through drills, so they are prepared for the worst case scenarios. And unfortunately, one of those played out this morning.
And you talk about being prepared. They really only had minutes.
Yeah.
And in those minutes, a lot happens in notifying people and getting staffing. And they scale up, as what they've told me in the past. They scale up to make sure they have enough staff. And then if they need to, then they can go back down. But they want everyone there, all hands on deck, is the motto, until they know what's coming in and what they are working with. And it sounds like that worked this morning, the plan that they have in place to provide help to these victims. And
it's a lot of victims. And remember, these victims, many of them, most of them are children, right? And so gunshot wounds, it's a smaller area in their body there, so it'd have a larger impact for them. I'm thinking today of what conversations families are having right now. I think back, I have children who are in this age, who are these elementary school kids here, middle school kids here. And I remember a couple years back, my one daughter, it was after a school shooting, and I remember her asking me, why? Mommy, why would someone do this? And I remember at the time thinking, Connie, I don't know. I don't have the right answer for you. And in that time, in these past couple of years, I still don't have the right answer for you. But this is a time now where whether or not you have any connection to this school, whether or not you've started school or you haven't started school, these are conversations all across Minnesota that we're going to be having today with our families. I mean, there's kids, kids are so anxious about going, many kids, I should say, not all kids, but many kids are anxious about starting the school year. Maybe you have a new kindergartner, maybe you have a fourth grader that's really anxious. They hear something like this, it's hard to escape the news these days. And these are the conversations that parents are going to be having. Some kids have already gone back to school, as you can see here, but many kids headed back to school next Tuesday.
It's just not, it's not the way to start the school year.
No.
It's an awful way to start the school year for families to have these real conversations. And tonight's going to be tough.
Well, you think about the families who sent their kid off to school today and who aren't coming home. And
you think about those communities. You think about this community and the conversation about what they're going to have today. And what you do will you ever feel whole? I just can't I don't think anyone can wrap their heads around it. It's still.
No, I'm just thinking about all these families who are there, and the families of the 8-year-old and the 10-year-old who didn't make it out of mass today, and what that is doing to their families.
Yeah.
The chief said that their families have been notified, and I'm hearing about the parents who were there, with their kids, with one of those kids, and how. I don't even have the words to describe what that must have been like. You can't even fathom it, imagine it for that family. No. And it's that's what I'm thinking about as we're learning all of this is how do you move forward? Do this?
How do you navigate?
I don't know that you do.
Yeah, you don't. And then the conversation that expands beyond this community of what this looks like and what does school safety look like as other kids start school and go back to school.
That's where the immediate thought probably needs to be. It's with those families, how they are doing, and with those families whose loved ones are in surgery right now.
Right, Mayor Fry said it too. He said this is the time where we need to come together and wrap our arms around these families here. These are Minnesota children here. These are Minnesota families. Right. And this is when we need to come together and just let them know that they are loved.
Stand by them, love
supported.
Them, support them. That's what he said, and I think that's
do right now, right?
That's what
There's so many people are feeling so hopeless and helpless, and wondering why. I mean, I know, just as a journalist, I've dreaded having to cover a story like this.
Right.
But
it's tough. It's tough. It's a collective toll, but you think about those families that are directly involved in South Minneapolis right now.
Right.
Yeah.
We've been showing you some live pictures of the scene over at the Annunciation Catholic Church, the Annunciation School there. We've been showing you these live pictures. We have reporters on scene there, and they've told us that police have actually expanded the perimeter there. We know they actually are doing searches in the area. We understand that the shooter parked in the parking lot over at the school. They had dogs out, sniffing out in that area, and so they've expanded that that perimeter there. And I have to think probably some of it is to give some of those families who were rewriting now a little bit more space for them to be able to leave in peace as they head out from that school this morning. But so they are continuing to be there on scene to talk to people. I know they've talked to several witnesses there, so we'll continue to give you that information just as soon as it becomes available to us there.
We have crews across the metro as we are covering this, from at the hospitals to the scene to other locations, and it's all to bring you the latest information on this terrible tragedy that has happened in our community. I think has impacted all of us. I'm sure you all have been getting messages as we've been sitting here from people just saying, my gosh, and I don't have words, and whatever it is, but just checking in to see, to learn more, just to check in, is because you care about people in this moment, and you realize who's important and what's important.
Right. And I also want you all to be aware, to pull the curtain back just a little bit on how we operate here, is that the information that we give you has been fully sourced, has been fully vetted. I'm sure, as anyone would do, you're going online, you're looking for as much information as you can get. So understand that the information that we are giving from you is coming in from official sources, coming in from the hospitals, coming in from the doctors there. And also want you to understand that we too, as journalists, are people out there. So our reporters out there on scene who are seeing these families who are perhaps hugging or crying, we are judicial in what we choose to show, because this is the worst day of their lives for many people right now out there in that church, in that school in South Minneapolis.
So we try to be sensitive to that and understand that this is much bigger than just a story, if you will.
While at the same time trying to cover this story for all of you who want to know and want to learn more information about what is happening here. It is a balancing act.
I want to let you know that we do have crews throughout the metro. We checked in with Susan Elizabeth Littlefield. She was at Children's Hospital. We checked in with John Lauritsen. He was at HCMC. We also checked in with Caroline Cummings, Barrett Leone. They are live at the scene. Jason Rantala live at the scene as well. So what they're doing is also giving us those first-hand accounts. They've been able to speak with people who witnessed it, maybe someone who's there.
Right here.
Here's HCMC here. So we're getting those first-hand accounts because we know that those really help to tell the story, to paint the picture as far as what unfolded from their perspective. So those are continuing to come in to tell the story as far as what unfolded in South Minneapolis.
And just to once again, we're now at 11:56, so just about 3 hours here into this, to give you a reminder. A recap of what we have learned this morning. 2 students at Annunciation Catholic School have been killed. An 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. 17 others are hurt, some of them in critical condition. 4 of them required surgery. Most of the victims in this case, all but 2, from what we understand, are children, are students at this school. This school, again, a K-8 school. We understand that the victims range between the ages of 6 and 14 years old. Right now, crews still there on scene. They're searching the car of the suspected shooter in this situation. That shooter, police telling us, died by suicide right there at the school. Whether or not it was in the park, we've heard differing accounts, in the parking lot or in the sanctuary there. We'll get more information about that. But neutralizing the threat in that spot there. And we know many schools in that area and across Minnesota were on lockdown until they were clear that this person was no longer a threat there. And Jen, you have some information. We now know the age of who this shooter, or we know of an age range, or at least of that shooter.
Yes, and this is the hard part to hear today, right? As we're in the midst of all of this, is to hear who the person was that was responsible, that police are now looking into. You heard the Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara mentioned that this person is in their early 20s. I've been gathering more information about this person, and we will be sharing more of that with you later, but it sounds like we have someone else that has some information for us right now, Esme Murphy.
Yeah, let's check in with Esme Murphy. I understand, Esme, you are with Senator Amy Klobuchar?
Yes, Senator Amy Klobuchar, kind enough to come in here and talk about this situation. Senator Klobuchar,
thanks, Esme.
I know that you have a former staffer whose child was actually in the mass.
Yes.
Tell me about that, because I know you've spoken to the mom.
I have. Kate Nyland and her daughter Cora and two other children were in there. There were so many families. The kids were packed into the church because it's the beginning of school. It's the all-school mass. It's little kids. Imagine, preschool to 8th grade. Her daughter was one of the older ones, literally witnessed several of her friends shot in the stomach, in the neck. Once they got out, she personally told one of the dads of one of the friends that had been shot that her friend had been shot. You think about
this 12-year-old child.
Yes, and you think about them in there scrambling to hide literally under the pews, having just been praying, and then the next thing you know, shots are coming through these windows. They're stuck inside. I know we're going to hear heroic stories of some of the adults in the room. Several of them were shot. We know that. We know of the 2 8- and 10-year-old killed right now. We know there's 14 kids injured, several seriously, but we also know there were at least 3 adults that were shot as well and have survived. And so we don't know if they were part of the service, if they were teachers, but I'm sure we're going to hear the stories of how lives were saved.
Did Kate give any more details that her daughter shared with her?
Just that the massive horror of watching these kids get shot and then laying down underneath these pews trying to save yourself. That's what they had been instructed to do, which was the right thing. And I don't know the details about, as the chief shared, about the doors being barricaded and how many tried to get out and where they were shot. But I do think the fact that we have such great hospitals like Minneapolis Children's nearby is going to save lives. You think about these parents whose kids are right now on the operating table. They dropped them off at school like so many parents do. I remember dropping my daughter off on her first day of school, bringing her to the bus, bringing her to the school.
Was this their first day?
I'm not sure about that. I bet it was in the middle of the week, but it's that feeling of that first week of school where they're going back and they're excited and they have their new teachers, and to have this happen to such a beloved school. And as you and I were talking about, this isn't some isolated school. It's in a neighborhood with other schools around and high schools and
Washburn
parents
High School
walking.
is right there. There are little businesses there. I mean, it's a wonderful community, where everybody kind of walks around and knows each other. One of the things, obviously, that people are going to focus on is that now it was here, now it was Minneapolis, now it was South Minneapolis. Obviously, this has happened so many times before.
You think about so many, and by the way, so many of these shooters kind of fit this profile of a person. It's in Uvalde, Texas, all those kids gunned down in the classroom, and in Buffalo, while the facts are different, the guns may be different, they were young guys that maybe shouldn't have had access to those guns. And I'm not here talking about hunters in Minnesota and parents hunting with their kids. I'm saying there must be some way, with all of the resources available to our country, that we're able to figure out on the automatics, which may not have been used here, but clearly those should not be in the hands of kids. And even some of our more conservative Democratic centers at least supported some age limit on, say, 21 of getting those guns. Then you have doing something about just mental health checks and more on background checks. We just don't know the details of who this person was. I don't. But it's never one size fits all with these shootings. So I can't help but lead to, as you first instinct, of course, is we've got to do everything we can to support these doctors and nurses saving the lives and support law enforcement and do everything we can to support this community. But there's got to be another piece of this. And the other piece of this is what we have to do about stopping these mass shootings. Because Nashville, Tennessee, and a school there, as I mentioned, Buffalo, Uvalde, or what we saw at the Pulse nightclub in Florida, or the school in Connecticut. Minnesota is not alone here. This is not about one state. This is about states across the nation that have seen this, and in other countries, when they put certain laws in place, they've actually had better results.
I know that you have been expressed concern about the kind of rhetoric that is out there. And obviously, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves here, but the rhetoric is pretty heated right now. What are your thoughts about that?
I believe that this rhetoric is contributing to, I'm not going to say this specific thing because you never can tie it in until you know the facts. I think back to some of these things like when Speaker Pelosi's husband was hammered, and that there was a clear
there was an attacker
through line.
Who literally came in the house and attacked him.
Right, there was a clear through line to what that person was reading on the internet. I think about some of the shooters in Buffalo, Uvalde. There was a clear through line to them engaging in sites where they were trying to get these guns purchased that were automatic and were marketed to them and the like. Clearly, the internet has made things available to people and information available, and people who already may be off balance, but they see this and then they keep fomenting in it. And so the anger and the hate, some of which is constitutionally allowed, that is for certain, but that anger and that hate is part of the issue here, because people just need to tone down their rhetoric. They need to look at actual solutions across the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, when it comes to guns, and acknowledge that this is not going to hurt hunting, it's not going to hurt lawful gun owners if we have better background checks, or if we do something about who gets assault weapons, or if we do something about ghost guns, which are common right now. We don't know how he got the shotgun, the rifle, and the pistol. We don't know if he purchased them himself or he just took them from somewhere. Sometimes it's lock boxes. The fact that we don't know now actually gives you a chance to step back and say, we know in every case the facts are different, but can't we agree that we can do some things that aren't going to hurt lawful gun owners, that could actually prevent some of these things from happening?
What stings and is so horrible and haunting about this one is Mayor Jacob Fry said, you know, we're beyond thoughts and prayers. I'm paraphrasing now. These children were literally praying. and that, to think of them in their pews for a mass celebrating start of school. But it's...
Well, one of the most frustrating things is everyone, when things happen, they say, what can we do? And they immediately help those involved, obviously. But repeatedly, that's where it ends. And I just believe that there's more we can do. And I'm not just talking about our state. I really am talking about nationally, because so many of this things could be better handled if we had some national rules in place. That's what he's saying there. The other thing he said was, which I thought was so moving, was when he said, these are everybody's kids. They could be your kids. And so I think the tendency sometimes is for people to say, well, you know, anyone would have this reaction. Well, I'm so glad my kid wasn't in that school. I feel bad for these parents, but I'm so glad. But then you have to start thinking, but my kid could be next if we don't do something better. I've led the school violence funding bill with former Senator Hatch that actually passed in the wake of the some of the other shootings years ago. And we got that done. We have a very robust grant program to help schools with better security. I know there's going to be a talk about this, but when there are so many guns out there and we're not doing anything to try to rein in who gets them, you're going to keep having these shootings regardless of that. I am more than happy to continue to work on school security, to continue to work on mental health and all the things that matter. But I'm telling you, you cannot protect against every single thing that a madman might do, as we learned from the deaths of Melissa and her husband. But at some point you have to look at, well, let's see what other countries have done on guns that haven't interfered with hunting, and let's see if we can be better.
Senator Klobuchar, thank you so much for joining us to address this horrible tragedy. Yes. I want to send it back to the desk here. I understand they've got more information.
All right. Esme, thank you. Let's check out our Caroline Cummings. She has been live there at the scene at the Annunciation Catholic Church throughout the morning. Caroline?
Oh, hi there, Heather. I lost you there for a second, but yes, you are correct. We're right outside of the scene here at Annunciation Catholic School and Church. Earlier, just moments ago, really, actually, we spoke with a 5th grader who was in Mass at the time that those shots rang out. He said he was right next to the windows, the stained glass windows you heard Police Chief Brian O'Hara describe as the way in which this gunman opened fire through those stained glass windows. And he talked about how they prepare for active shooter drills in school, but that it was never at church, which to me just struck me as just the innocence of this young boy, saying we practiced this, but we didn't practice it for this moment. And he also talked about how his friend dove over him, and he was hiding under a pew, and his friend was shot in the back. And he said his friend is so brave for doing that and protecting him. It was really so powerful to hear, and we want you to hear directly from this young, brave boy.
It was like the shots fired, and then we kind of like got under the pews. It kind of, they shot through the stained glass windows, I think, and it was really scary.
What did you do after that?
Well, we waited like 10 to 5 minutes, I don't really know, and then we went to the gym, and then the doors locked just to make sure he didn't come, and we waited in the gym for more news, and everyone was okay, or most people were okay.
Who are your friend, Wes?
My friend got hit in the back.
Did he go to the hospital?
Yeah, he went to the hospital.
What went through your mind when you saw that?
I was super scared for him, but I think now he's okay.
So you heard it there from Wes, that really brave 5th grade boy who was in the church at the time this happened. He described seeing his mom when he could finally be reunited with her, and he said that he was relieved because he didn't know if he would see her again, what was going to happen in that moment. But yeah, just a harrowing tale of what happened inside the church this morning when Wes and so many other school children at Annunciation School were kicking off the school year, going to Mass in the middle of prayers. He said it happened really soon after Mass began, and it was just the unthinkable that unfolded thereafter, guys.
So scary and so brave at the same time. Jumping into shield his friend. 10 years old.
Fifth grader there.
Caroline Cummings, we appreciate that that update. We talked about before that sometimes the firsthand accounts really help to tell the story,
right.
And we're getting more and more of those coming into the newsroom. So we want to continue our coverage this morning. Jonah Kaplan, he joins us now from South Minneapolis. Jonah, I understand you had a chance to speak with a priest.
AJ, when we think about the many layers of this tragedy, whenever there's tragedy, people turn to their faith. They turn to their congregations, whether it's a church, a mosque, a synagogue. And here the very shooting took place at that house of worship where people come to find their sanctuary. And we were speaking with a pastor who was here with the children as they were awaiting their parents, and he shared an anecdote with me that how were they able to keep the kids calm? They were singing. And what was the song they were singing? Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I want to be a living sanctuary for you. And that was just on repeat. And that struck me on a number of levels, because that is a song that I sing with my own children at night. It is a song that can be ecumenical. It is one that can be sung in a home of any faith. And it is one that truly can ground all of us when we think of how to find the light amidst this darkness. And AJ, I know you and Heather, young kids like me, I just took my daughter to 2nd grade, her first day yesterday. Coming up later this week, we're going to have the opening ceremony. Today was a Mass, a Wednesday Mass, which is, of course, common in the Catholic Church, but it was one of kind of the welcoming ceremony for this community and this school. There were multiple generations of people. We spoke with one man, his wife and their grandchildren were in the church together. They were in the pews, and they were praying for a wonderful new year, a year of success, a year of growth. This is the time of renewal. And this, in some traditions, is really a new birthday of the world because of the kind of renewal we have. Yes, there's spring, yes, there's January 1st, but in the fall, a new school year, a whole new year of growth ahead of us. And it just so hits home on so many layers. But to hear the pastor talk about that song, that hymn that the kids were speaking, it truly just touches the heart.
It sure does, Jonah, you know, because you think the challenge now that these pastors, that these clergy people, that the support system in the school will have over the next day, week, months, years, that these children will need, that these families will need, that the staff will need there. But, you know, the fact that someone was there at that moment to try to keep these kids calm in a situation that is just unimaginable.
Well, this goes back to something that we heard Mayor Fry say. He was very, very passionate about this. He says, you know, don't think of these as your kids. You know, I mean, he said, think of these as your kids. Yeah. You know, he said, make sure you stand by these families. Even though it's not your family, stand by these families. Love these families, because it's going to take all of us collectively to support our community moving forward.
Absolutely. You can see Shayla Reeves now joining us here. Maria just went to take a bit of a break. Shayla, give us your thoughts.
I've been at my desk following this throughout the day, and the thing that I continue to think about is just for these families, the ones that were rushing to the school this morning, just wanting to put eyes on their kids, and just the embrace, the intensity of that embrace when they saw them for the first time. And just the challenges of knowing that two families of an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, imagining that they could be there and they weren't getting that hug, or they weren't getting that chance to see them at the end of the school day, and not knowing that when you take them to school in the morning, just a routine day, that would be the last time. And so just seeing these families experiencing this level of grief, the families that are walking down the sidewalk, that kiss on the hand, just how lucky they are to be able to be doing that, because there are families right now that have children in the hospital, families that have children that they won't get to hug again.
Yeah, because several kids that are still in critical condition right now.
Processing everything they've experienced, something that not only this school but this community is going to be grappling with for some time.
Right. And I think back to something Caroline just said, is that if you have a child in school, or if you just know a child, you know that they do those school shooter drills all the time in schools now. But I will tell you something. They don't do those school shooter drills in the church for the Mass. They do it in the classrooms. You're supposed to lock your door in the classroom. You're supposed to hide. This was a wide open space. This is not something that anyone would have ever thought was possible. Someone shooting through the church windows into a church full of school children.
Let's listen to a 5th grader who says his friend saved him. Listen to this.
It was like right beside me. I was like 2 seats away from the stained glass windows. So they were like, the shots were like right next to me.
That's scary.
Yeah.
You went under the pew after that happened?
Yeah. And
Is
then
that what everyone tried to do?
I think I got like gunpowder on my neck. Yeah.
When you heard the shots, what went through your head?
I was like, the first one, I was like, what is that? I thought it was just something. Then when I heard it again, I just ran under the pew. And then I covered my head. My friend Victor like saved me though, because he laid on top of me, but he got hit.
Your friend laid on top of you?
Yeah, and he got hit.
Gosh, when you hear that about the bravery of that child to help his friend, and just a child describing that moment when he heard the gunshot and then realized that it was something more than just a noise he was hearing.
9 and 10-year-olds shouldn't have to save their classmates.
No, no. And you can imagine that the teachers, I'm sure, were doing the same thing in there. The adults that were in the room were doing the same thing there. I'm sure that is not the only story that we will hear of some bravery like that happened this morning in that church right there. Let's take a live look here in South Minneapolis. You can see the scene still quite active in this spot. We know families are still being reunified here, parents still coming in to pick up their kids. Again, this was started, what, 15 minutes after school had started there in that spot. So people were already on their way with their day, whether they're heading back home or the kids were dropped off on the bus, then to be called back then there. There's a school shooting at your children's school.
Imagine too, you know, so you find out there's a school shooting that happens, you return to school, but you don't know anything else. You just know you need to get to school, but you can't. Crime scene tape is up, and now you are waiting, just like everyone else, to find out, is my child okay? Is my family member okay? Is my spouse okay if they're teaching at the school? And you have to wait, just like everyone else, to find that out. And
I think we have some sound from a grandfather who went through one of those scary moments.
Inexplainable, and it happens way too much. And when it happens to your own children, then you're going to think very differently about this. And there's only one way to think about it, and there's nothing this precious little boy ever did to deserve this. To go through it, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. Are you?
All right. I think, again, a grandfather of one of the students there at that school. So you know that as soon, this is a school, it is a true community school. It is a private school, it is a Catholic school there, but these are kids that come right from that neighborhood. It's right on the border of Richfield and Minneapolis. You got a lot of Minneapolis kids there. You got a lot of Richfield kids coming in there. A lot of these kids, their own parents went to that own school. So I have no doubt that as parents rush to that school, grandparents rush to that school, friends rush down there to that school.
I just want to add perspective and context. So the grandfather that we just heard from, that was the grandfather of the 9-year-old. That's his granddad. So he's talking about, look, when this happens to your grandchild or someone, it hits differently, and you take it differently. So that's the perspective that he is coming from it now. He is experiencing this firsthand, saying, my grandson dealt with this, and maybe now he's saying, I have a different mindset with this as well. So just the context there.
It's something that you can't say, well, this is over there, or this happened to someone else. It's he now has this real in-person experience. And I think, as you mentioned, AJ, earlier, they were talking about wrap your arms around everyone and think of all of these as our kids.
Let's go back to the sound from that little one there that we had talked with earlier, talking about the drills that they do at school.
We practice it like every month, or I don't know, but yeah, we've never practiced it in the church though. Only in school, so it was way different.
And that is something that's different, because we know that since Columbine, kids have done school drills. And Heather, as you
said,
mentioned,
every month they are doing these drills. These drills are very specific. They are told that they need to close the classroom door, that they need to hide there. No one prepares for someone to shoot into the windows of a church sanctuary where you have hundreds of children and community members sitting in there. Yes, they did these drills, but they did not do the drill in the church.
And they're all sitting there open, vulnerable, in these pews next to each other. Why should they think they would ever need to?
Right.
And you think of church, too, as a place, come as you are, a place that's welcoming, and you don't imagine it being a place where you have to experience something like this. But when you think back to 2015 at Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, just the impact, people worshiping, and their life literally turned upside down. Kids today experiencing their lives turned upside down in a place that anyone would feel they should be safe.
And one of the more troubling details that we heard from the police chief, Brian O'Hara, was, and we need more context around this, but it sounds like at least some of the doors outside, they were barricaded.
Outside of the church?
Outside of the church were barricaded with these 2x4s. So it's disturbing to think that this could have been planned. When we don't want to speculate because we do not have that information
yet. We don't know how those barricades got up there, but we do know that it could have meant entry exit was blocked.
Exactly. So that's the other part. As this investigation unfolds, that part of the puzzle will still have to be told, because we know, Jen, as you talked about before, even though we are focused on the victims, as well we should be, there's a law enforcement side of this that is being put together as we speak right now.
Right. There's the one side that we have our focus on, which are these victims, these families, the community, all of us who have been impacted by this. And at the same time, law enforcement is doing their job. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the FBI, the ATF, police, any resources they are pulling in right now to try to get more information about the suspected shooter, who we know died by suicide this morning. And if there was any notes, clues left behind, if there was any warning signs that were seen or missed. There's so many questions that they are working on right now to unravel. And in a time like this where there is such deep grief, it's hard to think about the person responsible, because we don't want, it doesn't change the grief and the pain that families and everyone is feeling. And there's a job that law enforcement needs to do to hold this person accountable and to find out information about them. And so that's part of what I've been tracking today to learn information. We know that this person is in their early 20s. And I do have additional information that we've been learning from law enforcement. And we will share, we believe we'll share that with folks later today.
When it's appropriate.
But also when the information is confirmed. And so that's another thing that we're working really hard right here on this desk and behind the scenes to make sure that the information that we give you is correct, is factual. We know a lot of people are watching very closely, just looking for any snippet of information that they can find right now. So we just want to make sure that what we tell you is the real deal.
Yeah, and we've been talking about that this morning, because we heard from officials with the city and we heard from the hospital, but before that we were sharing information, and these are from people that we trust who are working on this case, who have been at the scene or other places, and that is the only information that we are sharing with folks, is things that we know to be true.
Credible sources. That's what we're doing here. So again, you're looking at some of the video of some of the reunification that was happening just outside of the church, outside of the school, I should say. And one of the things that we know, so this is a school, it goes K through 8. And Heather, you alluded to this before, but the students at the school, you can tell who they are because they have those green shirts that they wear. Those green polos that they wear.
That's the uniform that they wear over at Annunciation. This was their first week of school. They had just started there on Monday. Every Wednesday morning they have a mass. The community is also invited to the mass. I think we heard one story of one of the students' grandparents were there celebrating at the mass this morning. So this is the first mass of the year, so it's always the welcome back, the celebratory mass, and this just ended in unthinkable tragedy here this morning. We have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old who are no longer with us, no longer with these students, that these students will eventually have to go back to their classrooms. It's hard to even think about what that looks like.
Without their classmates.
Without their classmates.
And we know that there are other kids who were injured, 14 other kids, 2 in critical condition, and other children survived, were able to get to a safe place. And let's listen to one of those kids now.
It was like shots fired, and then we kind of like got under the pews. It kind of, they shot through the stained glass windows, I think. And it was really scary.
What did you do after that?
Well, we waited like 10 to 5 minutes, I don't really know. And then we went to the gym, and then the doors locked just to make sure he didn't come. And we waited in the gym for more news, and everyone was okay. Or most people were okay.
Who are your friend, Wes?
My friend got hit in the back.
Did he go to the hospital?
Yeah, he went to the hospital.
What went through your mind when you saw that?
I was super scared for him, but I think now he's okay.
Okay. All right. We have new information. This just in this morning from CBS News, just in right now from CBS News. 3 law enforcement sources telling us that the shooter was Robin Westman, age 23, from suburban Minneapolis.
And this is the name that I've been getting this morning from our sources and working with CBS News to confirm this information. This is Robin Westman, as you mentioned. We are also working to learn more information about any connection to the school or to the church. But we do know that law enforcement is checking out this person, where this person frequents, their home, and we are learning more information about this suspected shooter beyond the name. And we, of course, will continue to follow information that we can share with folks.
One of the things we did know is that they were looking at a vehicle nearby.
Yeah.
We knew that. They were looking at a vehicle nearby. So this would be the vehicle that they would be looking at nearby. So still a very, very active investigation. But
Jen, you mentioned that they're still working on if there was any connection to the school. During that press conference with Police Chief O'Hara this morning, our Reg Chapman actually asked,
he did ask,
is this person a former student? Does this person have some sort of connection to the school? And the police chief at this point, this is about, what would you say, 2 hours ago, the police chief said, no, we don't know right now, but this is certainly something that they will be looking at and investigating.
That's always part of an investigation, is why this location, why now? Did they choose it randomly? Was it a place that they knew of? Were they familiar with the location? So we are looking at a location where this suspected shooter lived. We know that law enforcement has been at this location. Once we learned the name of the person, the suspected person, we sent a crew there. And they have been witnessing law enforcement going in and out of this building. We expect what they would be doing in a situation like this is they would be collecting evidence. They would be collecting anything like a computer, a phone, any writings. And you can see this is, we're being told, in Richfield. And this is where law enforcement have put their efforts. As we've been talking about, there are two things happening at the same time. Working on the victims and talking through all of that, as well as law enforcement doing their role in all of this. An investigation like this is hard. We know the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency, they're looking at the 3 guns that were recovered from the scene. How did now Robin Westman get these guns? Was this person able to buy them legally? Did they get them from someone else? That's all part of this investigation. And right now, this is part of the collection of evidence that we are seeing unfold right now here today, as we now have a name of the person who police believe and who are investigating carried out this horrific attack.
And when the chief spoke earlier, he was saying that he believed he acted alone, and he also added that he did not have an extensive known criminal history, so I'm sure they'll be looking further into that to see how any of these pieces connect.
Reminder here, this apartment is in Richfield. We know that the church, that the school is right on that border of Richfield and South Minneapolis, so not clear. We'll find more information in just a bit about exactly where this would be over here, but not far from where the school would be. Richfield's not a huge city down there.
So a couple of different scenes. So you've got the scene in Richfield. You also have the scene of the church and the school. That's in South Minneapolis. We also have cameras over at HCMC. We have cameras over at Children's Hospital,
where they have victims there at both of those hospitals. So we have 7 victims now. An update from Children's just in the past minute or so. 7 patients there they are treating. We understand 17 patients were over at HCMC. Now, most of these patients, some adults were some of these victims, but most of these patients are children between the ages of 6 and 14 years old.
Yeah, at last check, they said they were actually operating on 4 people right now. There were no fatalities. That was at HCMC, but you just alluded to 6 to 14 years old. So very, very young patients who are being operated on right now.
And we did get that information earlier from Jonah, from one of the council members that one of these students, again shot in the back, as we heard from one of the students who said he was actually shielded by his friend. And then we also heard from that same council member that there was an 11-year-old who was shot in the head. So just serious, extensive injuries that the medical teams are navigating.
We're coming up on 12:32, and if you're just now joining us, maybe this is a good point to do a reset as far as what we've learned so far this morning, because this has been a very, very active scene. Unfortunately, we have 2 children who are 8 and 10 years old who are dead after a shooting that took place inside a church. The shooter apparently outside, we heard from the police chief, fired shots outside the church, into the church, and this was during Mass today, Heather.
It was during a Mass for the school, in fact. Annunciation School is connected there to that church in that parish, and the students go to that Mass. It was a welcome back to school Mass. The students had just started there on Monday, so this was their celebratory Wednesday morning Catholic school Mass. That if you've gone to Catholic school, you know that the kids all join in there. So they were in the sanctuary, and one thing that really got me is we did talk to a boy who was in the church at the time. He was right near the stained glass windows where the shooter had been standing, shooting in from the outside, and he said, "We do these drills all the time. We do these drills at least once a month, but we never did these drills inside the church." And all I can think of is, why would you think that you would ever have to do these drills inside that church there?
So first responders, the shooting takes place, first responders respond, and the thing that really stuck out to me is the first responders who go in there, and they have to look in the classrooms. They have to look through the church and go room by room.
Right, the kids were in the church, and then many of them, you can only imagine here what had happened. The shooter, according to police, was shooting from outside into the church sanctuary. So you have to think that people had no idea what was happening, what it sounded like. Did it sound like firecrackers? Was something crumbling? And they didn't realize right away what was happening. And then they were told by the teachers, by other students, to hide there under the pew. So we understand from the chief that when officers went in there, they first went into the sanctuary to try to help those students and those staff that were injured there in that spot, but then they also fanned out through the school because people had run out of that sanctuary looking for places to hide in there, and I suspect that they were looking for closets or bathrooms and going to try and find some of these children, some of them as young as just 6 years old there. This is a K-8 school.
Let's listen to the mayor and his reaction to everything that unfolded. Mayor Jacob Fry.
The horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead. There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance.
We're also hearing from the president this morning, who says that he posted on Truth Social, I should say, "I've been fully briefed on the tragic shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The FBI quickly responded, and they are on the scene. The White House will continue to monitor this terrible situation. Please join me in praying for everyone involved." Again, that's coming from the President of the United States.
Right, and let's head back outside, take a live look at Annunciation Catholic school, Annunciation Catholic Church there over in South Minneapolis, right near the border of Richfield in that area, over in a busy spot, 54th and Lindale. And as we've been mentioning all morning long, police asking right now people to just stay away from that area as families are being unified as they continue the investigation into what happened here just before 8:30 this morning.
Yeah. And kind of speaking to how this is really a community, a family in this neighborhood, Caroline Cummings just sent a message saying she received a text from a state lawmaker who saw one of the earlier interviews and breathed a sigh of relief because he coaches someone and a bunch of the kids from the school who play sports in Richfield. And, you know, everyone's so connected here, and it doesn't just impact the people that we've seen on the screen holding hands and reuniting, but there are people we don't see who are feeling the impact of this too, and still trying to make sense of this tragedy.
And Sheila, we've talked a lot about this morning, is that these students started school this week. There are so many students that start school on Tuesday. We already know that for many students it comes with anxiety of heading back to school there, and the conversations that families are having today and over the next week are really challenging. I don't know. Truly, I've been thinking about this throughout the morning as I go home, what you say to your kids about this.
Right, because some of them are just, they may be starting a new school, or they're just worried about the school year in general, and then you layer on top of it a tragedy of this magnitude, and it adds just another anxiety and more questions that parents are going to be trying to find answers to, and maybe leaning on some of those professionals that work in the mental health space for guidance on how do I reassure my child they're going to be okay, and that, you know, when you go to school, there are people that love and care about you that are going to make sure that you're safe, and finding the language around that to help them navigate a moment like this. Even if this wasn't their school, they still have to go to school.
Well, this goes to, it takes a village, right? It takes a village. It's going to take a village for us to heal. Let's check in with our Caroline Cummings, because Caroline, Shayla just mentioned what you mentioned before. A huge sigh of relief, I'm sure, but then also heartache at the same time.
Are we having a problem with Caroline's microphone there?
10-year-old.
There we go.
Oh, we're losing microphones here. Oh, can you hear me, guys? Okay. Yes, I got a text message from Representative Mike Howard. He lives in Richfield. He's a state representative, and he saw on TV as we took that interview with Weston, that really brave fifth grader you heard from earlier, and he says, I've been worried about him and was so happy to see him. He coached basketball for Weston and several other 10-year-olds, he tells me, who attend this school. And he said something that I feel like really speaks to what you heard if you were watching Weston. He was so brave, sharing what it was like to be inside that church when those shots rang out. And he says, quote, it tracks that he would be brave. He was our most fearless and rowdy player. And he says there's a lot of anxious Richfield families trying to find out the status of the children and students here at Annunciation Catholic School, because a lot of them played sports in Richfield, and so it just kind of speaks to that kind of reverberation beyond just the four walls of that church and this school. This is a tragedy that touches so many in our community, and so many people have a connection to this school, and even if you don't, you are just waiting to hear good news about the condition of those children who are currently in the hospital, guys.
Yes, and Caroline, I'll say the same thing. My kids play hockey with a lot of the kids that go to Annunciation. So these kids know kids from all over. So as Shayla was mentioning, it's not just affecting the people in this school, it's all of their friends that are in all the other schools and those families as well there too.
You think about Weston in the 5th grade and him being so brave.
And his friend.
And his friend being so brave to shield him. Let's listen to Weston right now.
My mom was waiting outside of the church when it happened.
Yeah. And what was it like seeing her?
I was super happy because, like, I was scared that I wasn't going to see her because I didn't know what was happening.
So brave.
Right, again, little Weston there, 5th grade there. Caroline Cummings, as she mentioned, has been talking to him throughout the morning there. Let's take you back out live to Richfield. This is where we understand there's a large law enforcement presence. This is at the home or one of the residences of the suspected shooter there. Jen, what can you tell us here?
Yeah, so what we know is that law enforcement had this name early on. So right away, they get to work when a situation like this happens. And they go to, the places that they go is look at the car, right? Look at what they had with them. But they also go to where they live and they try to contact anyone else who knows this person. And so this is one of the locations where we know that they've been there for at least an hour, possibly longer, and they're going through this apartment where the suspected shooter apparently lived. And they're looking for evidence, anything that would give them a clue, anything they can take back and look at electronically, maybe in a notebook, anything like that that they can take that could give them a clue as to why. Why?
Would the natural conclusion be to assume that wherever he worked, that would be a place that they would go next to speak with possible co-workers, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, if this person did have a job, they would go and try to connect with family, with co-workers, anyone that knew this person. They're likely combing social media, right? I mean, these are all things that are done in an investigation like this, and this is all happening simultaneously with, everyone at the hospital who's working on these patients and doing everything. But this is a piece that happens when something as horrific as this does. And what we know is that this is a location where this suspected shooter, Robin Westman, 23, is known to live, and they are looking for any evidence and will be collecting anything that can help them in this investigation. We know this person came in with 3 guns, as we've heard, a shotgun, a rifle, a pistol, and was wearing all black. That's what we know about what this person, how this person appeared on the scene this morning when they opened fire into that church where they were holding mass.
Now, again, this apartment is in Richfield, and that school there, the church there, is right on the border of Minneapolis and Richfield in that spot. We did ask the police chief this morning if they understood that this person, the suspected shooter, had any connection to the school, and this was probably about 2 hours ago. The chief saying at the time that he wasn't sure, but this of course is something that they will be looking closely at as well.
Absolutely, that is one of the questions. Why this location? Why today? And did they have a connection to this school? Had they been seen there before? Had people recognize this person on campus previously, this week or prior? And so those are all questions that they will be looking into and hoping to get answers on.
Well, we know this is a very active scene. We know that police and law enforcement telling people to avoid the area right here around the church. This is 54th, is it 54th?
54th and Lindale.
54th
so it's
and Lindale.
Right on 54th Street, but we understand that right now you can see it's a very busy area. They have a Kowalski's right there at the corner. They have restaurants, a gas station, several shops. The library's right just down the street on Lindale. They're asking people to stay out of that area, and we know our Barrett Leone and our Caroline Cummings and their photojournalists that they're working with have been on the scene all throughout the morning, and they have expanded that perimeter. You'd have to think part of it is part of the investigation. Another part of it may just be that the families are reunifying there and just to give them a little space as they come and reconnect with their children in that spot.
Yeah. So again, very active scene. The great images that we did see today are those reunification scenes where families were coming out. We saw it looked like mothers or fathers with loved ones in arms. And you know that tonight, this is the video. Tonight there's going to be some very, very tough conversations, but also lots of hugs tonight, making sure you hold on to those loved ones dearly. Just a tough day all around.
The other thing, too, is we just want to remind people right now, as you are all hungry, all of us are, for information about what is happening, what is going on. There's a lot of chatter online out there, so we ask that you just be careful with what you are able to discern and what you are able to read. We hear are trying to give you the most accurate, most up-to-date information we have, with information that has been vetted or information that's coming from officials here. But we know plenty of chatter coming online, and just be careful as you continue to navigate this. It's not an easy thing.
Right, and we are making sure that we are confirming with authority, or confirming with our sources, that we have the right information that we're sharing with the community. And one thing I just looked at is just how close that location where agents are right now on scene, and it's less than a mile if you were to walk,
right,
and just over a mile if you were to drive. And so it's a close location. So that's something that they'll be looking at too, and that might be why they were able to get to this location in Richfield so quickly, because they did learn the name of the suspected shooter very quickly, Robin Westman, at 23 years old, and were able to find that information and start that process of the investigation.
Yeah. We know this is a really busy area, again, right on the border of Richfield and Minneapolis. So we know officers were able to arrive on scene very quickly. They have 2 large police departments down there, and what the chief told us, and what one of the witnesses told us, is that within minutes, they had several officers there that were getting inside, trying to help some of the victims. And we know in these situations, every second counts.
Well, the other thing is that, they didn't necessarily know what they were walking into.
Absolutely.
Initially they had the bomb squad called in because there was threat of a smoke bomb that was there too. So law enforcement, not necessarily knowing what they're walking into in that situation, they have to do their part, and they have to assess the situation. That they make sure that they themselves are safe too.
Right. We want to check back in with our Caroline Cummings, who has been there throughout the morning in South Minneapolis, right outside the church. Caroline.
Well, hi there, Heather. So I am right at the corner of West 54th Street in Lindale. This is about as far as you can go when we're talking about the scene here. They have blocked off all of the streets surrounding the school. And so you can see blocked off here, I just saw Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. She represents Minneapolis. Of course, they allowed her to go through the police tape here. She really wanted to, as I tried to get her to share a few words with us, she said she really wanted to get to the families first. There's obviously a large media presence here, but there's also people who have just come as far as they can go to see what's going on. So many people overwhelmed with emotion and grief, whether you are a member of this parish and school community, or you are a member of Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, the state of Minnesota. Everybody is grieving for these families who have experienced truly an unthinkable tragedy. You can see, perhaps with Joel Cam here, our fearless photojournalist, that there is still police presence near the entrance of the school. That's where we saw children and their families leave earlier this morning. It's where I saw 2 young children with slings on their arm in the immediate aftermath of this. That was truly a hard thing to see. These little arms in slings, having been in mass and experiencing this really devastating tragedy. But yeah, still a lot going on here in Minneapolis, as now investigators are kind of combing through the details of what happened here and learning more about that gunman too, guys.
And Caroline, we know that it certainly takes a village even in these investigations. We just got a statement in from the special agent in charge of Minneapolis Division of the FBI saying they are assisting their local partners. Their hearts go out to the victims, their families, and the Minneapolis community as we face this senseless act of violence against innocent children. They say the FBI will devote every available resource to support this ongoing investigative effort.
Yeah. Again, this is an investigation that is only in the infancy stages. But right now the focus needs to be, at least we've tried to make the focus on the victims right now and everything that's unfolded right now. So we still have 2 people who are dead, but we still have a number of people who are in critical condition at hospitals throughout the metro area right now, at Children's and then also at HCMC.
And absolutely. And what we also have are these families that have been reunified and now go home and have just some really difficult conversations.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's the rush of what today has been for them. You just imagine, okay, they just started school a couple of days ago. They went through their morning routine today. They dropped their kids off at school. And you don't imagine, in some cases, for at least the parents of an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, that when you took them to school, you said goodbye, that it would be the last time.
Well, you know, that's the thing. Like, you think about, and Heather, we've talked about this, getting kids ready for the school year. Anxiety, whatever it may be, you know, they're excited, getting them ready. So you've got all that figured out. There's no playbook for something like this. There's no playbook for a grandfather to now coach his son as far as what happens next and how do we move forward. Listen to this grandfather.
Inexplainable, and it happens way too much. And when it happens to your own children, then you're going to think very differently about this. And there's only one way to think about it. And there's nothing this precious little boy ever did to deserve this. To go through it. It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. Are you? You know, we talk about preparation with this, and you can't prepare. We know that the hospitals have been prepared, law enforcement, the kids do the drills, but until that moment happens, there's nothing that fully prepares you for when that moment happens.
And when you think about it, too, parents think, I've got to prepare my kids for what to do with a stranger. I have to prepare my kid for what to do in all types of dangerous situations. And then life happens, it unfolds in unexpected ways, and it's like, I didn't think to prepare them for this. And it's probably a challenging tug of war, I would imagine, with, you know, wanting to feel like you've done all you can and knowing that there's something else that you couldn't do.
Right, exactly. And we heard from little Weston there, one of the boys that was in the church at the time. Let's hear from him again.
It was like shots fired, and then we kind of like got under the pews. It kind of, they shot through the stained glass windows, I think. And it was really scary.
What did you do after that?
Well, we waited like 10 to 5 minutes, I don't really know. And then we went to the gym, and then the doors locked just to make sure he didn't come. And we waited in the gym for more news, and everyone was okay. Or most people were okay.
Who are your friend, Wes?
My friend got hit in the back.
Did he go to the hospital?
Yeah, he went to the hospital.
What went through your mind when you saw that?
I was super scared for him, but I think now he's okay.
Again, Caroline Cummings talking to Weston there, a student who was in that church this morning right near the stained glass windows where the shots were coming through. And I think one of the things that Weston said that was just really hit home most for me is he said, we have these drills all the time. We have these drills every month, these shooter drills, but we've never had them in the church because you wouldn't think you would ever need to.
I was really struck by his composure when you really take in the magnitude of what they've experienced today and just how he was able to share and put together what he went through. I'm sure it's going to be an ongoing process of really, you know, understanding what this moment was, but just
this
the composure.
This is only the beginning of that, right?
But but the composure that he showed and just expressing that was remarkable.
The composure that he showed at the same time, he still has that little kid voice, right? And it's just a reminder that he's 9, 10
There are too many
years
kids
old.
who are going through something right now, who are just trying to wrap their minds around what happened and what they saw.
And what does school mean for them now?
Yep.
That's the hard part too. You know, what happens next week? A conversation for later, but that's something that we will continue to focus on because again, it's going to take all of us. You know, all of us here at CCO, all of us here in Minneapolis and St. Paul, throughout Minnesota, throughout the U.S., to put our arms around these people who are suffering right now, because it really takes a village. You talk about taking a village, and that is what it's going to take because this one's hard.
It is, and we just saw the video right there. That was video that Caroline Cummings took when she first got on the scene. That was right about, this happened about 8:30. Caroline was there by 9:15, and what you saw were just lines of ambulances
First
there,
responders going
because
through.
we know that they had 17 people were hurt, most of them children, many of them went over to the hospital. 4 of them needed surgery there in that spot. Some of those children in critical condition. Now, we, of course, will continue to follow all of their conditions right now, but a lot of families over there at HCMC, at Children's Hospital right now, just wondering, is my child going to be okay? And then, of course, those two families with an 8 and a 10-year-old who were killed this morning at Annunciation Catholic School.
We're taking a live look right now from HCMC. That's where we heard from John Lauritsen earlier, who updated us. We heard actually from Thomas Wyatt. He is the chair of medical emergency services over at HCMC, and he talked about it takes a toll on them too. It takes a toll on them, you know.
Even though they train for it.
Even though they train for this. They are ready for these situations. They are able to put everything else aside, and they train for this, but it takes a toll on them too. And they talked about, hey, we've had 2 mass events in the last 24 hours.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Right. And this was a rifle that was used here in this situation. And some of these children coming in there, 6 years old. These are little bodies here.
Yeah, and I've talked with the healthcare workers there, you know, before, the emergency responders who take in these patients into the ER. I've talked with the surgeons there for other stories about what they do to prepare and the toll it takes. That was the story that we were talking about. But what they always told me is it's always about saving a life. Everything they do is to save a life. And it sounds kind of dramatic, but that's what they do. That's what they're trained to do. And in a situation like this, they scale up to get the right staff there so they can do that. When they get that alert that they have a potential mass casualty event, they scale up until they find out how many people they need, what they need to do to get the right people in place to be able to perform those surgeries, to treat those victims in the emergency room before they can get to that surgery. And it takes everyone from those first police officers on scene who started to treat patients right then before the ambulances could get there, and then the next layer of you know, the EMTs and coming in to treat them before they get to the hospital. But it takes all of them to save lives in a situation like this.
We heard from Chief O'Hara earlier. He said within minutes there's officers were there on the scene. We heard from a witness who said it felt like 1 minute that they were there, and they were in there. These officers, they do have some training. They're not EMTs, most of them, but they do have some sort of training that can get in there and at least be that first response in this church with these children. As you've mentioned throughout the morning, AJ, you can only imagine what they were walking into. You can't prepare yourself. With all the training in the world, you can't prepare yourself to walk into a situation where you have children who have been shot. Let's hear more from the mayor and from the police chief here in Minneapolis.
This worship service was marking the first week of school for children that are attending the Annunciation Catholic School. During the Mass, a gunman approached on the outside on the side of the building and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the Mass. Shooting through the windows, he struck children and worshipers that were inside the building. The shooter was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children and other people worshiping. The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible.
There are no words that can capture the horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead. There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance.
Well, that certainly is a sentiment a lot of people are feeling. We're going to pick up our afternoon coverage. Frank, Amelia, we appreciate Shayla and Jennifer staying with us, and we'll try to go ahead and get you up to speed on everything that we know, and then as we kind of look forward, certainly focus on the victims, many of them who are still being treated today, and also a look as well at the shooter as we get more information and go to the possibilities of how and why something like this would happen to disrupt an otherwise absolutely peaceful Wednesday morning with children going back to school. And probably say this on behalf of Amelia, and I maybe beg for a little forgiveness if we get a little emotional at times. We have a number of connections personally to Annunciation. Our children have played in that gym many a time, and they've played with kids from Annunciation and against them, and we know a lot of families there. And I can tell you, ladies, every conversation that I've had today has begun with these and it's you can't even get out hello before there's crying and there's sobbing and there's you know, some people just wailing on the phone, just trying to understand and figure out, you know, what's happening on a day like that. So we'll try to keep it together as much as we can and get you good information. But if we get a little upset at times, it's because it kind of hits home to us. It's not far from our neighborhood.
Absolutely. So we should recap a little bit if you're just joining or if you've been watching all morning. As you know, 2 children are dead and 17 other people are injured after a suspected shooter shot through the windows of the Church of Annunciation. That, of course, is a church that borders right there on Minneapolis and Richfield. And police say that an 8-year-old and 10-year-old died. Initial reports indicate 17 other people are injured. Now, 14 of those 17 are children. And I know I was talking to one of our friends from over at Annunciation. She has a connection there, and she was talking about how in the church there was actually one kid, and you really don't think of this, who was in a wheelchair. And can you imagine the panic in sitting in a wheelchair and these shots are being fired and you can't run? And she said that one of the teachers grabbed the kid up and then, you know, threw him down and threw herself over it.
Yeah, we're going to hear a lot of stories like that. You know, the other thing, ladies, that we found out, to give some context, you know, so school started on Monday. And today's Wednesday, and it's the first back-to-school mass. Now, the back-to-school mass is held weekly at Annunciation, and we, you know, with a K-8 school with almost 400 kids there, I'm told it is just densely packed. Yes. You know, it's kid next to kid in the pew, and of course, you know, beginning of the year, you get a lot of grandparents who go. Parents who might work from home or not have to be at work at 8:15 in the morning when this happened. Were there. So there, you know, it's a multi-generational, kids, families, all kinds of folks, you know, in the church.
Celebrating, really, the beginning of the school year.
Optimism, a new year, everything's great, it's fresh, you get to see your friends, and then this happens. Jen, I know you know from your police sources more about the actual shooting itself.
Yeah, well, what we've learned from police, the police chief, I can tell you, though, is that the shooter stood outside and shot through the windows. He had a shotgun, a rifle, and a pistol that were all on him at the time, and shot through those windows, you know, to these unsuspecting kids who were just sitting in mass. We know that the 2 kids, the 8 and the 10-year-old, who lost their lives this morning, were in mass. They were in the pews, and that, I think, is what is so troubling.
Yes, because this is a school that's kindergarten through 8th graders.
Right.
Yeah, it's a middle-class neighborhood. It's literally 1 block away. That's Lindale right there. There's an AutoZone. There's a Kowalski's to the right. That's the church.
Washburn is right down the street.
Right there. Washburn went into lockdown. Holy Angels went into lockdown. Right. People were freaking out this morning, not know what was going on. You know, to that shooting, I mean, the amount of callousness and anger that someone has to have, because you're literally blindly shooting right through a stained glass window into a church you know is full of people.
Yeah, and we've been talking about, okay, where, you know, there's this deep grief, and we're worrying about the victims and how they're doing, and then there's also this police investigation that has to happen at the same time. that these other folks have to do their job to find out more about this person who we now have named a 23-year-old Robin Westman. And one of the things that they will look to find out is there a connection to this school or to this church? This is an apartment nearby, less than a mile if you were walking from the school, where we believe this person lived, and they are collecting evidence. You know, they're combing through it and trying to find people that knew this person. And to discover anything that they can, but they'll be collecting evidence just to answer any questions that could give a reason why. Were there warning signs? Was there anything that could have been caught or that was overlooked? And that's the hard part to even talk about right now, because we are still in the midst of so much pain. And yet this is happening, you know, simultaneously. And so we are continuing to try to learn more and to get information about this person. You know, we know he was this person was wearing all black and went with these guns, and shot. And
it's heartbreaking, because we heard earlier from one of the young students who was talking about, you know, since these school shootings that have been happening over the last several decades or more, how they went and they had to have these drills. Right. If there's an active shooter, the drills that they went through, but he said that they didn't practice in church, which is just, you know.
And why would you?
Exactly.
Right? And you can run as many drills, but this is just someone like coming to an office building, shooting randomly into like an office cafeteria from outside the window. Did you mention, I'm sorry, Jen, about Robin Westman taking his own life, according to police?
I have not yet. Okay. We're talking with you, but Robin Westman did take his own life, died by suicide. They said at the rear of the church, we're not sure if it was outside in the parking lot or where exactly that was, but it was mentioned the rear of the church. And that was one of the things that I think helped the other communities who were on lockdown, because we heard even just well past Annunciation into the suburbs that schools were on lockdown as a precaution.
Yeah. Well, Washburn and Holy Angels, which are really close. Sure. Kenny Elementary, I don't know if they went in, but it's possible. I mean, there's so many schools in that area.
Right.
You know, also
and so that's when they came off the lockdown, I think, is when they learned that the threat was no longer.
Yeah, when you look at the school, you know, the school is right on 54th. There's very few places to park in front, but if you go in the back, there's a huge parking lot. And that's where the shots were being fired, was from that back parking lot into the church.
We've talked with school experts over the years about what they teach kids to do, the kind of drills that they go through. And you're right, that it is just chilling to think that they happen in the classroom. They happen, they teach them about if they're in the hallway, what to do, where to go.
Right.
But this was, according to this one student, something that was not done in the church. And I think, you know, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but to say that this will change and people will look at what happened today and how to do drills going forward.
We're going to listen to, I talked about that little boy who, you know, so bravely discussed what happened in that church, and we're going to hear him again. Weston, I think is his name.
It was like shots fired, and then we kind of like got under the pews. It kind of, they shot through the stained glass windows, I think, and it was really scary.
What did you do after that?
Well, we waited like 10 to 5 minutes, I don't really know, and then we went to the gym, and then the doors locked just to make sure he didn't come, and we waited in the gym for more news, and everyone was okay, or most people were okay.
Who are your friend, Wes?
My friend got hit in the back.
Did he go to the hospital?
Yeah, he went to the hospital.
What went through your mind when you saw that?
I was super scared for him, but I think now he's okay.
That's the innocence of a fifth grader having to describe that. So we know that there are 2 victims. We also know that there's a number of kids still in surgery, possibly some adults too. I'm not sure about that.
Right.
But talking to these people, I know there are people actively on group chats right now trying to figure out who's okay, who is going to make it, who's in surgery, and you know, and people are continuing to play this out in real time, concerned about their community and their friends. When you know, we've talked to some of these people, and it is heartbreaking.
It is. I know that John Lordson, I think he was talking, and he was saying that they set up an area outside of HCMC where the families could go and they can find out and get the latest information. The hospital was keeping them posted, so that's good. but as far as knowing the rest of the community, knowing who was involved in this, I'm sure the word is getting around.
Right, and that's one of the things that we've also been talking about is there's so much speculation and there's so many things flying and even names that we are being very careful about what we are reporting. We want to make sure that we are being respectful of the families who are impacted and only releasing information that a family has or that the authorities release to us about about these victims as this is happening, because we have 2 families right now of an 8- and a 10-year-old who their child's not coming home. Who
devastating.
Yeah, it's
yeah, staggering to think about that. Speaking of victims and recovery and all the work going in to help people, let's go to Susan Elizabeth Littlefield now. She's outside of Children's Hospitals, one of the hospitals that a number of these victims were rushed to. Susan, can you tell us what's happening?
Hey, Frank. Yes, I just got an update from the staff here. There are 7 patients inside of Children's. I'm going to let you take a look at the hospital right now. It's been pretty busy inside today. They have treated several patients in there. This is a level 1 trauma center. Now, I am told that they have been briefed on this kind of stuff. You train for mass casualties. These are the things you do drills for. These are not the things you ever want to put into practice. Today is a day they put those drills into practice here with 7 patients inside. Now, I do have some hopeful news. I spoke with a grandfather, his granddaughter, 8 years old, one of the patients inside today. She is doing fine. In fact, she was just released. I talked to him when he walked into the door today. I want you to hear what he had to say.
It's very sad. It should not be this way. People should not have guns. That's the way I look at it.
What are you going to say to her when you see her?
I'll give her a hug, that's all.
Talked to him when he came out, and he said that he hugged her so tight, and she's okay. She's okay. In fact, a few of the patients who were here did seem to be okay. We saw about 3 of them get discharged. Looked like they just kind of had bumps and bruises, and we all know the pain that they really have is deep and will probably be with them for the rest of their lives. But again, 7 people being treated right here. I'm about to be briefed by one of the providers because, we always talk about mental health providers and emergencies. They are coming in, they are calling them in today. I mean, this is all hands on deck. Even at a children's hospital, a trauma level 1 hospital, they are built for this. Today, though, even here is as big as it gets. It's as heavy as it gets, and they are working hard.
Yeah, well, we're encouraged to hear that 3 have been released. So 4 people still there, kids getting treatment at Children's, right, Susan Elizabeth?
Yeah, it was really good. Well, there's 7 still inside, but we saw 3 earlier before they gave us that latest number. So I think the numbers were a little higher than we had at first. But I did want to tell you, too, a few of them just gave us kind of the most subtle wave and got in the car and went on their way. So at least a few of them do appear to be okay.
Well, that's encouraging. Yeah, thank you. Any good aspect, not that there are any good aspects, but the fact that you could get on an ambulance could get on 35E. Annunciation is right between Lindale and 35, and you could get to Hennepin Healthcare in minutes. You could get to Children's Hospital in minutes. It wouldn't take that long to even get to Regions or North Memorial as well. And I know all those folks were fully staffed. We're grateful to kind of have the medical community we have here now.
Absolutely.
We know the response was swift from everyone. From
the cops were there right away, right?
Who went in and who administered first aid as they could to victims while they were waiting on the paramedics and the ambulances to arrive. They take over, and then they go to Hennepin Healthcare, and we've been talking about the head trauma. The person in charge there said, we got this heads up, and a heads up can only be minutes, but that gives them enough time to staff up, to put the call out, to say, all hands on deck, you need to get here. We have talked with Hennepin Healthcare for stories before about a situation like this. how they plan and prepare for this, and they hope they never have to use it. And in this case, they said they used it yesterday for a mass casualty situation.
Sure.
And again today. But these emergency workers are prepared. They are good. They are the best at what they do. And the surgeons are incredibly talented at saving lives.
You've done many stories, and you've gone behind the scenes with them too, and you talked about all their training and what goes into it.
Yeah, we've met with the paramedics who are literally handing off the patient in this hallway that I've been into the ER, and seen the room where they work on the patients, where they get them stable enough where they can move to another location for surgery. But I've talked to these people and have heard from them, and in their heart how dedicated they are. It's a job that is so challenging and difficult, but what they do is they work to save lives. We've been saying that over and over again, and that means a lot of different things in a lot of different scenarios, but it's all about that end.
And I know you talked to them about it, the mental weight, though, of going through this, and I can't even imagine having these young children brought in, what that does. Even though they're doing their job, I think afterwards, how do they go?
It impacts them. I mean, I know I've talked to the person who's the head of the pediatric unit there, who said she goes home to her own kids, and how hard that is when you think about the patients that you're treating. And that's certainly the case today, but we know that there are still, I believe, 2 in critical condition of those children, and you know,
at Hennepin Healthcare?
At Hennepin Healthcare, that were brought there. And so, you know, obviously they're doing their work right there on them, and we hope to get an update on those conditions. But we know that they have literally a playbook for something like this. But as the surgeons have told me in the past, that you don't know exactly, you can't fully prepare because you don't know what kind of wound, where, and then each case is obviously individualized, but they do the work that they're trained for to save lives.
And you think about also the mental impact for the parents of these kids. I mean, they had the fear of, I dropped my kid off at school this morning, and some of them are dealing with the reality that I'm not going to get to do that again. And so it's the mental impact of, we just went through this, but then you have really small kids that you have to try to find words around this to help them get through this too.
Resonate through the whole community for a very, very long time.
Well, it is today. I drove in. I didn't want to drive by Annunciation because I knew it would be crowded and they want people to stay away. But I drove around Lake Harriet Parkway. Saw a couple of people I knew, stopped, and immediately that conversation is tears and disbelief. But I can't believe how many people I saw who are usually walking around with a big smile, trying to keep their pace. People are on their phones. People are talking on their phones. People are looking on their phones. You can just tell by body language. I saw a woman walking down the street going like this, with her hand on her head while on her phone. And this is it's obviously the topic of the neighborhood. It's the topic of the day. It's the topic of the state. It might become a national topic as we, move forward. But,
well, it already is a national topic.
It is. Yeah. It's overwhelming. Yeah, Senator Klobuchar was here earlier today.
I have friends from across the country that were texting me this morning that they heard about this and were just beside themselves.
Yeah, and I do want to update the numbers I just gave because it was 4 kids that needed the operating room at Hennepin Healthcare. I had said 2 that were in critical condition, but they had 11 patients there, 2 adults, 9 pediatric patients, and of those 4 were going into an operating room earlier this morning. So we hope to have, an update on their condition when the hospital is able to provide one for us. We know that communities around now the country are watching and are also thinking about those patients and hoping for the best for them. But 4 young kids, we know, needed surgery today.
Do we know if the 2 children who are deceased, were they able to contact the family?
When the chief released that information earlier, he said the families have been notified. I'm told that the parent was with one of their children as they died, and it gets you. But the kids that are at Hennepin Healthcare, they said they range from age from 6 to 14.
Yeah, that's a K-8 school, so that makes sense.
We want to go back to Susan Elizabeth Littlefield, who is outside of Children's Hospital. We just spoke with her, but she joins us now with, I think, somebody that she's been talking to. Susan Elizabeth?
Yes, I wanted to come back to you guys. I mean, the details that Jennifer just told us, that kind of stuff that we are hearing all day. I mean, mental health is such a theme of this day. So right now I have joining with me the head of mental health services, Dr. Sarah Jerstad, here at Children's Minnesota. And I just want to ask you, first of all, Doctor, how in this moment you start conversations with everybody?
These are never easy conversations to have. There's no good news in this conversation. And for families who have kids, this is a really difficult conversation because kids are just getting ready to go back to school. They're scared, they're terrified. So the first conversation a parent should have with their kid is to say, how are you doing? And to listen and to be there. The second thing is to understand what kids are fearful of right now. What are they afraid of? Parents and adults are the source of comfort and support for these kids. So to really be there for them. And third, just to listen to what questions they have. Kids are going to wonder what's going on.
Yeah, and on that note too, some kids are already in school today, and they're going to get home from school. They might not know what's going on. What's your thought on, should you loop your kids in on this?
This depends on the age of the kid. For really young kids, they may not be aware and may not understand, but even kids in elementary school are probably going to hear about it. So it is best to start that conversation because as the parent, you want to be the one having that dialogue with the kids. Kids are going to probably wonder, are they safe to go to school tomorrow? Are they okay? And that's going to feel scary to both. And even when we look at data and say, yeah, you're most likely safe, the feeling of fear is there. So it's a real good opportunity to listen to their fears and to start to put a plan together for the coming week.
Speaking of plans, Dr. Jerstad, I mean, I know that Children's has told me that y'all prepare for mass casualties. I mean, what's it like in your head right now knowing you have a plan and you got to enact it?
This is something no one ever wants to actually put forward, but we have to plan for it. So the main things that we think about, of course, our medical providers are here on site doing everything they can to help kids. We are available for mental health support. We know that families who are affected just simply because they're fearful, they've watched it, maybe calling in, seeking support, seeking extra appointments, we're available to provide that support. And then if families who are affected need extra help, we're going to open up for that help. We're there to provide guidance and provide the most support possible in a difficult situation like this.
And you bring up the medical providers. I know their mental health is incredibly important. All the first responders today, and this is the first time we've seen something of this size here. What about, you told us about the children. What about the parents? I mean, they're having to have these conversations, and you saw the faces. I mean, the biggest feeling of just grab my chickens and hold them close to me tonight. So many parents just going to be hugging. What can they do for their mental health in this moment of crisis?
Yeah, parents are absolutely affected, and teachers and caregivers, everyone is affected. And not only do they feel like they need to hold their kids and support them, but parents and adults are going to need their own support. And it's easy for parents in this situation to think the only thing I'm going to focus on is taking care of my kid. But to do that well, those adults and those parents need to take care of themselves. Many adults out there have their own therapists or mental health providers, and so I would encourage them to access those folks for extra support, and certainly seek support from friends, family members. People come together in these kind of situations and create community together, and that's one of the biggest kind of healing components there is.
Yeah, community is going to be huge. What about, do you think, just for today? As far as conversations, as far as breathing, what should we all remember?
Something for today is simply to be close, be together, and recognize what each person needs. Each kid and each parent is not the same. Some kids might need to go in their backyard and play. Some kids might need to do something for distraction, and that's going to be really helpful too. Some kids may need to sit and talk about it and express their feelings and ask and get a plan for what would I do if something like this happens. So I think parents need to take that cue from their kids in terms of what's needed today.
And then also, as far as what's needed, I know there's so much information out there, and a lot of people just kind of compulsively checking and reading and looking at the images. what's your advice on how we absorb this?
We can only absorb so much. So when we get a lot of negative information, it sends our kind of anxiety into overdrive. So I would say stay informed, keep up on what's happening. But again, give yourselves a break, give yourself an opportunity to get support from others and talk to others and model that for kids too.
Model that. Well, we thank you for the care you provide here and all these medical providers. I'm sure you guys are going to have support for them as well.
Absolutely. That is something that we never forget, is that our caregivers here are humans too, and they're going to need support, and we will absolutely be on top of that.
We know this is a long game. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Yes. So you heard those powerful words here of people just holding their kids tight and just listening to them tonight. I think it was excellent words of wisdom on a day that's hard to quantify.
Absolutely, Susan Elizabeth. Definitely helpful information from Dr. Durstad about how to talk with your kids and that you really need to take care of yourself as a parent, too, to be able to help them.
And listening might be all that some parents have capacity for, because they're still in this moment trying to process everything they've gone through, and just the panic and the fear of going to school today and not knowing, trying to reconnect with your child. There's just a lot that they're navigating as well.
Absolutely.
And the majority of them are not even back. They'll be back Tuesday after Labor Day. So they've got another 6 days to have to process and talk about this, and I'm sure there's some anxiety that goes along with this. A couple updates for you. President Donald Trump has acknowledged and mentioned the shooting and asked for flags across the country to be flown at half staff in memory of what's going on at Annunciation School here in Minneapolis. And also, we understand that at 2:30, the governor is going to hold a press conference, and we'd imagine there'll be many more people there besides the governor, and try to get the latest information from him.
Absolutely. You just heard Dr. Durstad talking with Susan Elizabeth, and she was talking about the importance of community, support from the community. And I know that Barrett Leone is out on the scene, and somebody had just stopped by Barrett, I understand, to just lay down some flowers there.
Yeah, that's right, Amelia. It's just such a heavy day here for every Minnesotan, especially folks who live in this community. We spoke with a gentleman who just lives a few blocks away, AJ, and he came to lay down flowers. Obviously, this perimeter has expanded as this morning has played out here, so he wasn't able to get too close to lay those down, but he felt called to come here and just pay his respects, be with community. He told us that his dad is an emergency physician at Children's, and AJ was awoken by his dad shaking him awake, saying, "Hey, I need you to take care of Grandma, the dog. I have to go into work, duty calls." And so his dad rushed into work at Children's to care for the kiddos that were sent there after this tragic event. Here's a little from what AJ had to say.
Just woke me up, said I needed to take care of my grandma and the dogs, and just left without a moment's notice. My dad's my hero. Just going into the line of fire without hesitation. So
yeah. What kind of doctor is he at Children's?
He's an emergency pediatrician.
So he just got a call. He didn't say anything other than, "I gotta be there."
Yep.
When you realized why he may have been called in when the news reports came out, what went through your head?
Just didn't even want to think about it, honestly. My dad's such a solidified man, has a fortitude of none other like I've seen, and I've never seen him like that before. Just determined to help people, and just really sad.
Yeah. And you said you grew up close by to here?
Yeah, I live on DuPont, just like 3 or 4 blocks up there.
So how are you feeling as a person who is living in this community and this happened in your community?
Devastated. I didn't go here for elementary school, but I would probably say half the kids on my block did. Went to a graduation party like last summer about them graduating 8th grade, and it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah. I see you have flowers here. Why did you bring flowers, and I guess what brought you to the scene today?
Just felt like the right thing to do. I called my mom the first thing when I heard what happened, just both crying. I knew what she would want.
You can take the time you need. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's hard.
Yeah. I just think about the families. Yeah. I just give them a hug.
We all do.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah. We all are thinking about the families during this tragedy. AJ said it best, his dad is his hero. These first responders, these doctors stepping into action here this morning. It's a heavy day, and we thank them all for doing their job.
Yeah, we get it, Barrett.
Yeah.
And thank you, Barrett.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Those are I've had so many conversations like that, the one that Barrett had with a stranger, with people today, and keep getting text messages, and it's just so terribly heartbreaking and sad for everyone involved, especially when you realize what a great community that was of this school that's on the kind of the Richfield, Minneapolis border near Lindale. On 54th Street, and how long it's been there, and the history. And I spoke to a woman, her son just left for college. He's an alumnus, graduated from Annunciation, and he told his mom, I need to come home.
Oh, yeah. He wanted to be there. I also spoke to too.
Yeah,
he
wants to be there for his community and for the people as well. So. We know that there is a connection between, well, we can tell you that right now police are at the residence of the shooter. It is in Richfield. They are searching that residence. We know some information about the shooter. We want to make sure that we have everything. This is the residence in Richfield. We want to make sure that we have everything vetted and correct before we share more information about that, and then the possible connections to Annunciation School as well. So we are actively working on all that.
Reg Chapman is out there. Maybe he has more information. He joins us. I think he's out on the scene too. Reg, are you there?
Amelia and Frank, I tell you, there's a very large police presence still existing here. The perimeter that's set up is still blocks in either direction. There are police officers, other law enforcement agencies all here. And like you talked about this neighborhood and the resiliency of this neighborhood and just closeness of this neighborhood, people here are in shock. This has not happened here. But yet people are meeting on the front porches. They're talking to each other. They're bringing water and snacks out to first responders, telling them thank you for being here and for taking care of us. That just shows how tight-knit this community is. It shows how they care about the first responders that have been here and that they are sticking together through all of this tragedy. We got here a little after 9 o'clock, and when we pulled up, we did see some families being reunified with their children. There were some emotional gatherings there. We didn't put that on camera because we didn't feel that that was necessary for everybody to see. It was a private moment. But there was one moment when one little boy ran into his mom's arms, and photographer Chris Cruz and I were there, and he was talking to his mom, and he was telling us how one of his friends, when they were in the chapel, when they were praying and they heard the gunshots, that he got under the pews and he put his head down and he covered his head. But when he looked up, he saw a friend of his on top of his other friends, protecting them, covering them. These young people, we're sure going to hear these stories later. Remarkable stories of what they were doing to take care of each other. They practiced these things in school. They hadn't practiced it in church, but yet they knew what to do to protect each other and to look out for each other. And those stories will surely come out later on as this investigation goes forward. We also spoke to a nanny. She was pulling up to go to work and was surrounded by cop cars. She said she sat there and watched as kids came out of the school running, as parents ran to them screaming, as officers went in heavily armed, looking to see who the shooter was to defuse the situation. So she sat there. She had been in her car since 8:40 when we talked to her a little while ago, and she's still shaken. Her mom came, brought her a dog to comfort her, and she said her heart goes out to all of the families, to all of the staff, to all of the teachers, to everyone is associated with the school and this church. And it's a dark day for people in this neighborhood, Frank and Amelia.
Reg,
really
I guess there is some, while it is so dark, I love some of the parts of light that you shared. You know, sometimes the police have just, for the last 5 years, getting beat up left and right on so many issues, but to see people go, boy, you're needed today, and to see people come and support them, I'd imagine that's a little heartening for them as well.
It is, and I spoke to quite a few officers because when I see them pass by me, I remind them to take care of themselves. they're the first ones on the scene. They see the horror behind the tragedy that we hear about. Not only were they doing all this today, but then yesterday in the same area, the same precinct, so to speak, these same officers were dealing with another mass shooting not far from here. So these guys are heroes. These guys and gals are laying it on the line. They ran into that church, into that school, not knowing what to expect, heavily armed, but they see the worst of what happens here. And so we're just glad that the city recognizes that, the police chief recognizes that. There's help for those officers as well, but right now they are busy investigating. We still see officers moving around here door to door. What they're doing is they're going around. We see canine officers with them. They're not telling us what they're looking for, but they are checking on people, making sure everything is sound here. We see that a lot, and this is hours after the event, and they're still out here on the scene doing what they can to make sure people in this area feel safe, guys.
Stay there, Reg, because I have a couple. I want to share some new information, and I have some related questions. So, the suspect, the shooter, according to police, is Robin Westman, age 23, who used to be known as Robert Westman, and Robert Westman changed his name to Robin Westman in 2020. Reg, do you know any idea how long that person has lived at that apartment, or if it is their apartment, or were they just staying there? Have you been able to find out any of that information as they look through the Westman residence?
No, we're still waiting on that information to come to us. We are told that there's going to be another update they're going to give to the media here at 2:30. We're expecting Governor Walz to be here at that press conference where he will update us on what they know about this suspect. We're hearing a lot of things, and we don't want to report what we're just hearing. We want to make sure that we bring our viewers the facts. We don't know if he's associated to the school, if he's a former student, if he was a former employee. We're not quite sure what ties, if any, he has to the school. All we know now is that there's an active search going on where he was allegedly staying. They're trying to look for answers. The car that he was driving, that he drove up here to the school to do this horrific thing he did today, is still in the parking lot. They're still processing that as well. So there's a lot of moving parts to this investigation, and right now we just need to be patient to make sure we get the most accurate information to our viewers, Frank.
We're on the same page, Reg.
Thank you, Reg. We're talking about community and what a close community is over there at Annunciation. They have all these other schools around them, and I know Holy Angels talked about that.
Annunciation is a big feeder school.
It is a huge feeder school, the Holy Angels, and I'm being told that Holy Angels will be holding a vigil tonight at 7 o'clock for, members of the community to come together, support each other, and I'm sure there'll probably be many others, because St. Joe's, all the way out in St. Paul, they went on lockdown when they heard this because they thought maybe it was these Catholic schools that were being targeted. So I'm sure that a lot of schools did that, right?
Yeah, there's St. Richard's, and there's Nativity, and there's Annunciation and Carondelet, and all these kids play in the same Catholic league, whether it's volleyball or baseball or softball, and I have absolutely no doubt they're all feeling it. And a lot of Annunciation kids go to Washburn, or they go to Southwest, or they, some go to St. Thomas Academy. They go everywhere around. So these kids are close, and they're well known, and
a far reach,
and
definitely.
They're really going to need each other the next couple days.
And what's really sticking with me, and what we heard from Reg, also what we heard from Barrett, are these stories of selflessness and just the law enforcement officers running into danger, the kids and what they were doing to protect their friends.
Yes.
Just the way in which people who say, I don't know anything else to do other than show up with these flowers and just be here. The medical professionals that are saying, hey, I have to be here, watch your grandmother, I'm just going to go. Just everyone who said, my community needs me in this moment, and I'm going to be there. So many stories that we've heard, and I'm sure many that we haven't heard, and will continue to learn as more details come out throughout the afternoon.
Yeah, it's been quite a rough day, I think. It's really sad. As you look, I was just looking up, you and I were looking up just a list of school shootings in the United States, 2,000. This is just from 2000 to the present. There have been 574. And I just remember going to school. That was not, you were protecting from earthquakes or whatever. Those were the drills that we had when we were going to school. So it just really just breaks my heart.
Yeah, well, Columbine was 1999, so that's 26 years ago, and that's what kind of put them on the map. We had Red Lake here in Minnesota. That was in 2005. 9 people died there, and people are like, gosh, when's this going to end? And then we went to Sandy Hook in 2012, which was horrendous, and that was an elementary school as well, and 26 people died there. There was Parkland in Florida with a number of deaths, and then we see these groundswells for people saying we need change, things need to happen.
It's staggering.
And it becomes really polarizing. In this situation, these poor folks were literally defenseless. If you're just tuning in, you may have heard this. If you hadn't, the shooter approached the back of Annunciation Church while an all-school mass was going on. The kids started school. It's a K-8 school. They started school on Monday. This is Wednesday. They have their first all-school mass. All-school masses, if you're not familiar with the Catholic school tradition, is something where all the kids come together. It's a celebratory mass. Some schools hold them once a week, some just at the beginning of the year. But it's that's the church and school. They're connected to one another right near 54th and Lyndale. And grandparents come and moms and dads come, and there's optimism, and kids are in their school uniform and they're sitting by class. And I talk to people who have gone to that mass over and over again, the all-school mass with the kids, and it is packed, and it is pew to pew. And the police say,
it's a celebration.
It is a celebration, which makes it
yeah.
more tragic. And this shooter literally came behind and is firing blindly through a stained, well, maybe not blindly, maybe it was intentionally, I don't know, but blindly through a stained glass window at children and defenseless adults and teachers, and shooting the place. And it's a 23-year-old that did this, according to police, named Robin Westman, who we're working to get a lot more information on. Not that we want to glorify or celebrate that, but I know people are interested in what kind of connection there may be to the school, and we're putting all that together, and we're also really trying to focus on 17 people that are still in the hospital.
And what we keep hearing over and over again, both from some of the youngest survivors and adults, is you prepare for these types of situations in schools, but you don't expect to deal with this in a church.
Right.
And you think of church also as come as you are, and it's a place that's
safety.
open and safe for everyone.
And it's celebration.
Yeah, and moments like this make me think back to, it was 2015, Mother Emanuel in Charleston. People worshiping
in a church.
In a church, and a place that you feel, just as school should feel, you would think it would be safe, and then unspeakable tragedy happens in those spaces.
It is heartbreaking.
And now we'll kind of be added to that list of all the other places now. This will go down as one because of the number of people who were hurt and killed.
Yeah, you were talking about the 17 people who are injured, and we do have, we spoke to a doctor who was treating some of those kids, I think at Hennepin Healthcare, so we have an interview that was done with him.
Whenever that type of a page goes out, again, it really puts into motion a lot of a big response from all of the teams. And so we are, because we're a level 1 trauma center, we have to, mobilize certain types of resources like, operating rooms and the surgical services. We have to have emergency providers and nurses. We have to, mobilize things like the laboratory and the blood bank. So there's a lot of planning, and again, a lot of exercises we do throughout the year to prepare for these events. And unfortunately, we respond to many of them throughout the year. These incidents are never easy. We've had 2 in the last 24 hours that have occurred, these mass casualty incidents. I want to take a moment to tell you how proud I am to work for this organization and the teams that were involved, the resources, again, that were mobilized.
And that's, of course, the doctor from Hennepin Healthcare. I know earlier we heard that there were 11 patients, 9 were pediatric, 4 kids were still in the operating room, and we just heard that from Jennifer Merrily from her sources there. And so we have not heard what condition they're in
it was
yet. So
all hands on deck. And I know just from looking at my phone and some other sources, there's people still wondering and praying for some folks that are still literally in surgery right now. And gosh, this is 6 hours after the event.
We have been cleared to use a photo of the shooter. Is that what I'm told right now, Scott? Talking to her.
Okay. Well, as soon as we do, we'll
put it up and
get some more information.
But what makes it interesting is it's saying that this is a photo shooter from a yearbook at Annunciation from the class of 2017.
Yeah. Well, before we report any of this, we'll just make sure that we bring it to you in a way that makes sense and that we know how to do it. It's okay. So we can show it to you. So this is the Annunciation Yearbook, ladies and gentlemen. This is class of 2017. This is a photo of Robert Westman. Police have identified Robin Westman as the person who did the shooting. Robert Westman legally changed his name to Robin Westman in 2020. So what I was struck by is when I read this is the optimism of the quote at the bottom. Talking, you know, they talk to seniors
Yes.
and say, and the quote is, "If smart people could fly, this place would be an airport." Implying you're with a lot of smart, interesting people, along with some advice for younger students. So the police are at her house, at Robin Westman's apartment in Richfield right now. Reg Chapman is near there. Huge police presence as they search for the apartment because they're, of course, looking for clues. So this is something I know that a lot of folks were in the Annunciation community very concerned about, is there a tie between the shooter and the school? And yes, there is a tie. Robin Westman is a graduate of Annunciation, so there had to be some kind of motivation to go back there. But clearly,
I don't know if there's a graduate. It could just be it could be from that class.
Could have
they do it
attended
every year. Could have attended. So I don't want to say and assume that she was a graduate. But
I don't either. I've got some sourced information, but I'll make sure we confirm that. But obviously, there's a connection.
And still questions about what their continued connection, if there were a continued connection, would be now that we're in 2025.
Yeah, exactly. So. We do know that Elle Mose is out at the apartment of Robin Westman, and she joins us now. Hi, Elle. What can you tell us?
Hey, Amelia. So yes, behind me is one of the many units on this apartment campus or complex, if you will. We're in Richfield, off of Lyndale Avenue, so not too far from the Annunciation School. But behind me are several unmarked BCA and Minneapolis police vehicles. They are investigating the unit behind me here where the suspected shooter, Robin Westman, lived. And we are talking to some people that live in this apartment unit as well. Most of the time we've been breaking the news to them that the suspected shooter lived in their building. And here's one of the neighbors and their reaction to learning this news.
Yeah, maybe I've seen his face, you know, I don't know, but it's just so scary, you know, to have a shooter next door to you and you have a kid. And those innocent children, they don't deserve to die like that. It's crazy. They don't deserve. I'm sorry for their loss. Sorry to the parents. And sorry to those innocent children. It's so scary.
As your mom yourself, like, what's going through your head knowing she's going to be school age soon?
I know. I don't even want to think about that right now. I just hope that one day all this will stop. I just hope the gun violence and everything, they will just get control of it, you know. Nobody has the right to just own a gun like that, you know. People have to go through stuff before you can own something. It's crazy. You know, living in a neighborhood, you think you are safe, and the next thing, you had something like this. It's hard. You know, my heart goes out to the parents and for those innocent children, you know.
What's the feeling knowing the shooter lived in the same complex?
Oh my goodness. It's so scary. It's so scary.
Those tears and those high emotions are something that so many mothers feel, whether you had a child at Annunciation or not. It's emotions felt around the state, around the country right now, and even around the world. There's a BBC London journalist here right now. So this is a headline that is making a global impact right now. And just take a look behind me. These angled vehicles, these are all the ones that are affiliated with the BCA and Minneapolis police. There's some crime scene tape blocking off the unit. They are letting residents in and out of their unit, but they are walking them to their units, so they're not able to walk freely throughout the complex right now. So far, we've just seen people going in, law enforcement going in. We have not seen any sort of weapons or any evidence coming out of the building yet. But we are staying here today. We're going to be keeping our eye on what they're bringing out evidence-wise, if any. And yeah, I would say about a dozen or so law enforcement from Minneapolis police to BCA are here investigating the suspected gunman's apartment complex here in Richfield. Back to you.
Hey, Elle, I know where you're at in Ridgefield, and I know where Annunciation is. I mean, I'm guessing maybe it's a 5 or 6 minute drive from that apartment complex to the school.
Yeah, I would say that's about accurate. 5 or 6 minute drive. We're extremely close to Annunciation. I had to take a look at a map to realize I was actually in Richfield because I felt like I was still in South Minneapolis.
Okay. Thanks for the update. Let us know what else is happening there. We appreciate it.
Like we told you, Governor Walz is going to speak at 2:30 in a press conference. We're going to Caroline Lowe right now, who is standing outside.
Or Caroline Cummings.
I'm sorry, Caroline Cummings, standing outside of the church there. And Caroline, do you know a little bit more about perhaps what the governor is going to say or talk about?
Hi there, Amelia. Caroline Lowe is a great former WCCOer, so I'm in good company there. But the governor is supposed to speak here in about 45 minutes. Have not been briefed on his remarks, but certainly earlier today on social media, he expressed his condolences, said he had been briefed on this situation. We are, if you had been watching us for a while this morning, I was actually on the other side of the church, right at West 54th and Lyndale. Now I'm on the other side where they are allowing people to set up, because there is a perimeter right outside of the church where, of course, police say a gunman shot through windows at children and churchgoers, staff who were there for a school mass. And when I was escorted over here by police, I got to see the church up close, and there was a lot of police there, investigators still obviously combing through that scene of this horrific tragedy, but it gave me some solace, right? You know, a church where this horrific tragedy happened, it is still a place for peace and where people can hopefully turn to in the days and weeks to come here. As someone who went to school mass as a child, you would never anticipate something like this happening, and we've spoken to neighbors, that very brave 5th grader that you heard on our air earlier today, about just thinking that this couldn't happen here, right? You never imagine that this can happen in your own backyard, and people are overwhelmed with grief, and their hearts are poured out to the families of the victims, who will certainly have a long road ahead towards healing after this unthinkable tragedy, guys.
Caroline, when you were walking and they escorted you back there, it was my understanding that the shooter came from behind the big parking lot in the church. I know you're on 54th. There's not a lot of room to park there. Mm-hmm. Did you see that? Are there bullet holes in the stained glass, or did they walk you through the front and you didn't see anything?
Yeah, I walked through the front, so I was trying to see, because, you know, like you said, the police said it was through the side stained glass windows. I couldn't see any shattered glass or broken windows from my vantage point. The way the church is situated on the property, it's hard to see the side from when you're walking out front, but certainly seeing, you know, a church with crime scene tape around it is, you know, something that nobody should be seeing today.
Agreed. You know what, while we have you there, so as people are looking at that map, the Annunciation, the church, is that big building you see on the right-hand side, and then you see a clump of trees, and there's a rectory there, and then the building to the left as they zoom in, just so you get an idea, that's the school. So if you look under the T in Annunciation, that is the church, and then you see the trees to the left, and then if you go over a little bit more to the left, that building in the lower left-hand part of your screen with the chimney, that is the school. So the kids have a short walk from the school into the church, but it's a big complex, and then there's that huge parking lot behind there, and Caroline's reporting from in front of the church right now, which is at 54th, and that's Lyndale.
Yeah, we're at West Diamond Lake.
Yeah.
We're at West Diamond Lake and Grand, so if you were looking at the church from West 54th, which turns into Diamond Lake Road, we're on that left side, and you're exactly right, Frank. The church and the school are very close to each other, and we were hearing from that 5th grader, Wes, earlier, who talked about, you know, having to duck in pews, but then they were, you know, rushed over to the school as this was happening. So it was very much, you know, they're one and the same, right? These schools with the parochial schools with their churches, they're very close by, yeah, it was hard to see any sort of broken glass or anything from the vantage point when I was crossing there. But right now, once a police escorts you through that area, you know, there's no way for us and our cameras to get in there. It's very much a secure scene right now.
Yeah, we get that. Just kind of curious. But so thank you for the update.
Well, clearly this person was familiar, it sounds like, with that church and where, you know.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, Robin Westham attended, we know, Annunciation. We're trying to figure out exactly what years and what time, but was a student at Annunciation in at least 2017. This is a photo from the 2017 yearbook of the, I don't know if I refer to it as the grade school or the middle school. I guess grade school covers all of it, but this was Robert Westman, now Robin Westman, legally changed their name in 2020, and this is a 2017 photo. And this person, 23 years old, police say took their own life, suicide following the shooting, and lived not far away in Richfield, where there's a huge police presence, as you saw earlier, as they search Robin Westman's apartment. And we believe there are other connections to the school as well, and when we can report those and share those and make sure that we're verified on all of that, we will.
And so once again, I think that we're going to have Governor Walz will be talking at 2:30, hold a press conference. I don't know if he'll have more information at that point, but I just want to recap a little bit about what happened. Minneapolis police chief said this morning that 2 children are dead. Their ages 8 and 10 years old. 17 other people are injured. 14 of them are children. We do have reporters at Children's Hospital and at Hennepin Healthcare. We did hear from a doctor earlier talking about what was going on there, and I know at Hennepin Healthcare they have 11 patients there, 2 of them adults, the rest are kids. We know that 4 kids still in the operating room at this point. And Susan Elizabeth, who's over at Children's, said that there were 7 patients inside, obviously a level 1 trauma hospital there. So we're waiting to find out more about that.
Yeah, and we're going to try to get some tips on WCCO.com. We did a couple interviews with, you know, how do you talk to your kids? Some kids went back to school Monday, some, like they did Annunciation. Some went back to school just yesterday. Most kids are not going back to school until next Tuesday, and what is usually a extraordinarily joyous, optimistic time in a young person's life, returning to see your friends and your teachers and coming off of summer and a long holiday weekend and maybe the state fair. That conversation is completely and radically changed for parents and families, not only in Minnesota but across the country.
That doctor was, I think, really helpful. We were talking about that, Sheila, right? Some of the advice that she gave to parents, how to handle this situation if your children is at school, even if they didn't go to school and they're hearing about this.
Absolutely, and the importance of parents to not only, they're also thinking about and worried about their children, but this is really traumatic for them too. And so recognizing that and knowing that they may need support as well as they continue to try to be that support for their kids, the whole family navigating this challenge.
It was interesting. She said sometimes you just, as a parent too, you may just want, you take your child's cue to see if they want to talk about it, and sometimes they just want to talk about it. Sometimes they want to go outside and maybe be alone, maybe play, and that's how they handle it. So yeah. I think there was a lot of important information there that she shared. And
I don't think it's just, you know, 7 to 14-year-olds. You know, there's a group of kids who are 23 who went to school with Robin Westman at different high schools in this place, and they're all talking about it, and they're trying to process it, and they're thinking about it, and they know kids that went to Annunciation or all the other, there's so many schools in that southwest Minneapolis neighborhood. It's something that they all need to give some thought to. Jonah, I know you had a conversation with a parent. We're going to go now live to our Jonah Kaplan, who has some more information. Hi.
Well, we'll get Jonah's mic up.
This is a situation that Yeah, Frank and Amelia, good to be with you. This is a situation, you know, it's a tragedy on so many levels, right? And I know for me personally, look, I just took my daughter, she started 2nd grade yesterday. I got another daughter starting pre-K next week. And before we even come up with a camera to a lot of these families, you know, the first thing we do is we try to just speak with them on a human-to-human level, right? I'm a dad, you're a dad, we're parents. And where do we go from here? We're going to have to do bedtime tonight. we're going to have to get up tomorrow and we're going to have to do breakfast before school. These routines, they're called routines because you do them again and again, but they're never going to be the same because of what has just happened here. And I think the mayor was very prescient in what he said earlier today when, don't think of these as just any other kids. I mean, any of these could have been our kids. And when I spoke to a father earlier, we're going to play this sound right now, he talked about those moments of coming to the school looking for his children and about a thought that many parents have had, especially this generation of parents who have grown up from Columbine, from Sandy Hook, and thinking, what would I do in this situation?
I was on my deck. I heard the shots. I think there was that. What's sad is that I've thought about this before. What would we do? I worked with the school to get 3N bulletproof film on the school side in the foyer. And so
this was something that was on the school's radar before.
Yeah, I mean, it's on every American's radar. As a parent, you have kids in school. This is the worst case scenario that you unfortunately have to think about. And so when I first heard those shots, I think I knew pretty immediately that those were gunshots. And I've thought through what would happen. What would I do? And so I just immediatally said, I got to get up there. And so I hopped in my car. I grabbed this, it's like a non-lethal firearm that I have called a Berna, and just sped up there. And so my